Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a special 9 a.m. Morning Dew edition of the Dew Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular, of course. Oh, wait, where's Russell Dobular? Russell Dobular's chair is empty. Look at that cushy chair he's got. Look at that cushy chair he's got. You know, when you get up in years, you need a nice soft cushiony chair like that. Look, he's even got a pillow. He should sleep in that chair, really. I don't know why he doesn't sleep in that chair. Maybe he does sleep in that chair. Maybe that's his bed. Maybe he just reclines it when the show's over, and he'll go back to sleep. He got up early today. He's got bedhead today. Here he comes. Oh, look at that. Look at that slick back hair. Look at that. Now he's getting his stuff ready. Just got to unmute your microphone, get your headphones in. I wonder if he can hear me now. All right. You just got to unmute that microphone there. There you go. I was going to list your apartment. I was going to list your spare room, your Donbass there.
Yeah. That was like broadcast news right there.
Yeah, I know, because you got to get your, what do you have to eat? What'd you have for breakfast?
Well, I haven't eaten it yet. It's sitting over there. I'll wait until after the hurricane segment. Because when you're rushing, everything goes wrong.
Uh-huh.
So I spilled the eggs and had to start again. My
Cook
coffee
eggs?
was not set properly.
You don't have cereal?
I don't eat cereal, man. That shit's bad for you.
You should have a box of cereal for show days. So in case you have to have a quick breakfast. You can.
I could have gone with the oatmeal. The oatmeal would have been a lot less involved.
Oatmeal is good.
But I was craving eggs.
All right.
Really
All right. Well, yeah,
eggs.
it's good to have some protein to start the day. I haven't eaten anything yet. I've been up since 6:30. I just had coffee. I got that Pete's coffee. I got to tell you, not impressed. Overrated.
It's all right. It's
overrated.
All right.
Yep.
I don't think it's not great.
Hey, the Yankees won last night. Condolences to the Vanguard boys out there in Kansas City. Another close game. Very, very tough series. But we came out on top last night. We're looking in the driver's seat. The Mets are going on to the ALCS. We could have a Subway Series. Yankees-Mets World Series. How about that? New York, baby. That'll be a fun one.
Well, that's when was the last time, man? That was
2000. 2000 was the last one. And 2000 was not really evenly matched. I mean, the Yankees, we had a much better team than the Mets that year, and we won in 5. But this year, if it's a Subway Series, that'll be a great series. I mean, they are very evenly matched this year. So I think actually, if there is a Subway Series this year, it will be great.
I ever tell you our friend James Nagy's theory about assholes?
What's it? Oh, yeah. I forget it, but it has something to do with Yankee bumper stickers and SUVs.
Yeah,
and
basically, if a guy studies martial arts, he's probably an asshole. Not necessarily, maybe not, but there's a good chance he's an asshole. If the guy studies martial arts and drives an SUV, almost definitely an asshole, almost 100%. If a guy studies martial arts, drives an SUV, and has a Yankee sticker in his back window, asshole.
There you
100%.
go.
And you know what? I have never found that theory to be incorrect.
I mean, I don't know that I've met a person that satisfies all three of those criteria. That's the only problem.
Good. That's because you didn't grow up in Queens.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know too many martial artists, period. Then again, I don't know too many people, period. So, folks, we are filing in here 456 strong in the YouTube chat, 370 strong over on Rumble. Please hit that like button. Let's work the algorithm this morning. We certainly hope everybody is safe from Hurricane Milton down if you're watching in the Florida area. And that is going to be our first segment of the day, obviously, to get you guys updated on that. So, Russell, take this away. Russell was on Hurricane Watch. He was on Storm Watch last night because I was doing the rest of the segments.
Right now.
Yes.
Because I had to put this together this morning. I get cranky if I don't eat, and we have a very long day. We have this, and then we have an interview later on. All right, so Hurricane Milton batters Florida, leaving multiple dead. So this is from The Independent. Hurricane Milton has devastated portions of Florida, causing multiple deaths, and officials predicting that more bodies will be found upon sunrise. Milton made landfall as a Category 3 hurricane on Wednesday night near Sarasota County's Siesta Key, bringing multiple tornadoes, 28-foot waves, strong winds, heavy rainfall, and devastating storm surge. Evacuation alerts were blasted out to millions, with Bradenton Police Chief Melanie issuing a bleak prognosis for those who neglected advice. Quote, "What we'll probably be finding in the morning are bodies," she told BBC Radio 4's Today program on Thursday. Multiple deaths have already been confirmed after dozens of tornadoes spawned in St. Lucie County, seeing a tornado strike Spanish Lakes Country Club retirement village in Fort Pierce, County Sheriff Keith Pearson said. More than 3.2 million homes and businesses in Florida have been left powerless, with those in the west central region the worst impacted. A large crane was downed in St. Petersburg, and the roof of Tropicana Field Baseball Stadium was ripped clean off during Milton's ferocious winds. After landfall, Milton is weakened to a Category 1 hurricane and is moving off Florida's east coast, with residents still battling against brutal winds and storm surge. So this is some video of the hurricane in action. So just horrible conditions. Now, in a bit of macabre news, macabre detail, Floridians who refused to evacuate told to write their names on arms so they could be identified.
Jesus.
Floridians who refused to follow evacuation orders despite living in the path of Hurricane Milton were told to write their names on their arms in permanent marker so their bodies could be identified if they were killed. Millions of residents were instructed to leave their homes ahead of Milton making landfall Wednesday night along Florida's west central coast as a devastating Category 3 hurricane. But those who failed to heed advice were issued a harrowing warning and were told to mark their limbs with their personal details to help officials identify their remains. Wow. Sounds like corporate America should have really come through to help these people evacuate, right? The airlines, the hotels, I bet they really were very helpful in this situation, but we'll get to that.
Look at that.
So this is the home of the Tampa Bay Rays, Tropicana Fields, with the roof ripped off by the winds. So if you're in the path of those winds, you're not going to do too well. They got a record 13 tornadoes during this hurricane. 13 tornadoes. So this is our friend JB reminding us of how we treat the most vulnerable in these situations. In Lake County, slave labor fills sandbags for residents before the arrival of Hurricane Milton. I fixed it, of course, referring to their headline, "Inmates Help Fill Sandbags." I'm sure they were very happy being put in the hurricane zone there. Remember, folks, the 13th Amendment has a big loophole. You can be enslaved. You can be used as forced labor as punishment for a crime. And because of that loophole, slavery has never really ended. This is slave labor, as our friend JB points out here. And here, just one of the wonderful representatives of Florida. This is from Khaleesi. She posts a lot of good stuff on X. This is Florida GOP Rep Laurel Lee. She voted against $20 billion in FEMA disaster relief funding last week as Hurricane Milton was heading towards her congressional district. She also took thousands of dollars from AIPAC and said she will continue to support our strongest ally in the Middle East. They serve Israel. So, yes. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, folks. Bootstrap your way out of those hurricane winds. This is Qasim Rashid. As Category 4 Hurricane Milton prepares to wreak havoc on Florida, a reminder that Governor DeSantis rejected $11 billion in federal aid meant to address climate and infrastructure and banned the phrase climate change from Florida laws. Republicans are proving Don't Look Up was a documentary.
Yeah, not only have they banned the phrase climate change, but you're not allowed to talk shit about Jews either. So how are you supposed to learn about the weather if you can't mention Jews or climate change?
If you can't talk to Jews, it's so rainy today. You can't. You know, those people are screwed. This is Dr. Jill Stein, presidential candidate. So we're going to get a little into how corporate America really stepped up here. As time ran out to evacuate before Hurricane Milton hits Florida, Disney World and Universal kept workers on the job. This should be illegal. We can't rely on corporations to put workers' safety over profits. This is why we need strong laws and strong unions to protect workers. So this thread really, most of my reporting here is from More Perfect Union. So shout out to them. So this is October 8th. Disney World and Universal are still open. The National Hurricane Center says today is the last full day for Florida residents to get their families and homes ready and evacuate if told to do so by local officials. Disney says it's operating under normal conditions. So you're a Disney worker, you don't want to lose your job, you have to go to work instead of evacuating. These people are such scum. This is part of why, Disney gets a lot of heat on the culture war stuff, and I'll talk about that a little bit. But I've also tried to point out what an evil company this is. This is part of why whatever you feel about the insertion of queerness into cartoons and such, the hypocrisy of this company that's currently being sued by over a dozen women for pay discrimination with their girl boss narratives. It's such a smokescreen for the fact that they're literally one of the most evil companies in the country.
I mean, Splash Mountain's got to be pretty lit in a hurricane.
That's true. Maybe that's why they kept it open for thrill seekers.
Yeah.
So this is October 9th, the day the hurricane is going to hit. Disney World and Universal are still open. Most parks and attractions won't close until 1 or 2 p.m. with the hurricane barreling down. That is how greedy these people are. And to be fair, it's Universal as well. It's not just Disney. At the same time, people are being advised to either evacuate or be where they'll ride out the storm by noon today. Workers cannot be an afterthought during a climate crisis. Okay, so she's on it. Kamala Harris issued a statement. Let us all be clear. Americans impacted by a crisis should never be ripped off. I have seen firsthand the devastating impact of price gouging during an emergency. As Attorney General of California, during devastating wildfires that displaced thousands of residents, I took on those attempting to take advantage of the situation by raising hotel prices. As senator, I worked to stop price gouging during the pandemic.
Also, inmates wanted to charge 4 cents an hour to fight those fires. I said, no. No,
No,
1
she
cent
cracked-
an hour. That's the wage. You're not going to price gouge us. The people of California will not be taken advantage of. You're getting a penny an hour.
No, in fact, she had a very popular policy that the inmates had to pay them.
Yeah.
Before they were done. Those evacuating before Hurricane Milton or recovering from Hurricane Helene should not be subject to illegal price gouging or fraud at the pump, airport, or hotel counter. Any company or individual that tries to exploit Americans in an emergency should know that the administration is monitoring for allegations of fraud and price gouging and will hold those taking advantage of the situation accountable. Now, Pete Buttigieg, our beloved transportation secretary, also weighed in. This is October 7th. This is October 7th, getting ahead of the curve like he does. The department takes all allegations of airline price gouging seriously. We are keeping a close eye on flights in and out of areas affected by Hurricane Milton to make sure airlines are not charging excessively increasing fares. So I don't know. I guess by watch, he literally means they just watched it happen. As Hurricane Milton nears landfall in Florida and over 1 million people have been ordered to evacuate, corporate price gouging has begun. There are numerous reports of airlines and hotels suddenly jacking up prices as people need to flee. Okay, so I didn't always use their quote tweet, but this is all from More Perfect Union. Put all this together. Okay, so flights here, $399 normal, $1,174, $1,485, $2,150, $2,351, like outrageous prices that no average person could possibly afford. This is United for flights that normally cost $399. And here you've got American Airlines, according to Captain Silver here. These flights run little over $100 on the weekdays. It's no longer survival of the fittest, but survival of the richest. So according to him, these $100 American airline flights normally $1,192, $824. And this, according to her, this is normally a $60 to $70 flight. She has it on the left, $60, $62, $70, $836, $1,047, $1,079, $1,678.
Wow.
Now, the hotels, not any better. Hampton Inn, now that's the down market brand of Hilton. $617 for rooms that normally cost $233, $201, charging $617 on a Wednesday night. Now this fella had an experience he wants to let people know about, and he wants you to contact the Morristown, Tennessee Holiday Inn to let them know what you think about it. So apparently he's an essential worker. He's been going around helping people in the hurricane, helping people evacuate. Got charged $300 at this rural Holiday Inn. And apparently they told him, fuck you, when he complained about it. So let's see what he has to say.
These people, the manager, a girl, long hair, didn't get her name. She's too busy telling me to fuck you. That's what she said to me. We don't like it, fuck you. Come right out of her mouth. Stand on it, stand by it, everything else. The manager of Holiday Inn just told us if we didn't like their prices, fuck you. TikTok, I need your help. This sumbitch right here sitting in Morristown, Tennessee. Morristown, Tennessee. Charging basically essential workers $300 a night to stay in their motel. $300 a night. Dude, I need to wash my ass and sleep. Who in the fuck has that kind of money? Y'all see that shit, don't you? Look here. Hey, I'll tell you better than this. Hold on. Yeah, them motherfuckers smart. They don't put their phone number on that bullshit. They ain't got no information on that shit. Last night, the little boy, his name was Zane. I don't know her name. But anyway, if there's anything you all could do, the pilots are staying here. You know the pilots is flying everything up on these hills for these people? This is where the pilots are staying, y'all. $300, $500 a night for rooms. The better rooms, we just got a regular room. The better rooms, $500, $600 a night. Any way that you all can help us with this fucking Holiday Inn. I'm so goddamn mad, dude. Told me, fuck you. That's what she told me. Well, fuck you too.
Fuck you too.
I want you to keep this in mind too. If any of y'all will go to Holiday Inn Express, Morristown, Tennessee, right on their fucking page, capital letters, $139 a night. That's what it says. We even asked them about it, and they said, oh no, we don't set that price. That's somebody else that does that. We don't know what that's about. $300 fucking dollars. If y'all call this Holidays Inn in Morristown, Tennessee, they're going to lead you around, but I'm begging you, tell them Michael, Pissed Off Nation sent you. I told her she's going to remember who I was. TikTok, I'm begging you, do your thing. Dude, everybody that come up here is under great stress, great pressure, and we have everybody's spending a lot of money to help everybody. They just getting rich off what we're doing. It's crazy, y'all. Fix this, TikTok.
Well, he says earlier in that video, too, that the Days Inn actually cut the rate. Rate because everybody was sort of coming together. But he said the rooms were horrible, so he wanted to go to a different place. And this place more than doubled the rate.
Right. Of course, the website says $139 a night. So you heard the man. You want to give him a call. I don't think it would be taken amiss. Let him know what you think about how they're treating these poor people trying to get out of the path of a hurricane. And you know,
if enough people raise a stink, emails, stuff like that, maybe they'll lower the price back down. Give these workers a place to stay.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's part of why I wanted to show this one. But hey, you know, we talk about this, and you know, man, I'm skeptical of a lot of collectivist, communist kind of ideas. But at the same time, you have got to acknowledge this is a failure of capitalism. When you let these corporations just do what they want to do, look what they do. There was no meaningful help from the government, no meaningful shelter these people could go to. Not enough help, obviously, to evacuate, or people would have taken it. And it allows these people to get away with murder. Now, this is, if any of you are in Florida and you've had this experience, there is actually a price gouging law there for these situations. So you can report it to the Attorney General. The number is 866-966-7226. And you can also report it via the No Scam app or online at myfloridalegal.com. Include your name, contact info, and the description of the gouging. So these people are in a desperate, perhaps deadly situation, and corporate America is doing what it does, charging over $1,000 for $100 flights.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I mean, that hotel was one example of many. Yeah.
Right.
And obviously, our friend JB is in the path of this. We hope you're safe, my friend. Our point of contact over at Rumble. I don't know if he wants his name out there, so I won't say it, but he's in the path of this as well. Rumble is in the path of this as well. They're headquartered in Sarasota. I'm a little surprised we're even able to stream to Rumble today. Yeah, I'm a little surprised we're even able to stream there because, I mean, I don't know what their infrastructure backup thing is, but I mean, that's where they're headquartered, and that is right in the path of this. And so, yeah, look, I mean, times like these, you're supposed to band together. You're not supposed to take advantage of the situation by charging people double and triple for very essential things like transportation out of the danger zones. And obviously for workers who have to be there, they need a place to stay. And so, like that man said, the Days Inn was trying to do the right thing, although apparently they didn't wash the jizz out of the sheets enough, so they could probably get better at that. But they did. But they had the right idea with the prices. They cut it in half.
At least they tried.
At least they tried. Hey, at least they tried. At least they tried. You know, maybe they got to replace the washing machines there. You know, but at least they tried. At least they made an effort.
No, I mean, of course, I'm not clear what the laws are. The way Harris is talking, she's making it sound as if there are federal laws that would allow you to crack down on this. Because of the way the airlines are regulated, I think you probably can. I'm not sure if that's true, if you can do that to motels through federal authority. I think that's up to the state. I'm not sure, but it's just a disgrace. It's really just a disgrace. And it looks like all the airlines did it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, folks. We thank you all for being here this morning. We're going to take some Rumble rants and some super chats here before we continue on. Conda Strike, thanks for the $5. Thankful for some DDs in the morning. Thank you, Conda Strike. Appreciate that. Damn it, I hope you read that as double Ds. All right, well, I will. Thank you for some double Ds in the morning. There you go. Thanks, Conda Strike. Appreciate that very much. All right. Here we go. No need to read out loud. That's okay. I will anyway. Unsubbed Kyle Kalinske when he started eating on the show. Please keep a minimum of decency. I know it's early.
Hey, man.
When did Kyle start eating on the show?
Did he start eating on the show?
Yeah.
Was he having yogurt there?
Well, Kyle's got no excuse because he pre-records.
Yeah, I mean there was a why would he do that?
Why would he do that? Why not
there was a hurricane. I had to get up at 6:30 to prepare the exhibits for the hurricane. That's the only reason.
There's a hurricane every morning in my house. It's called Hurricane Beckett and Hurricane Sawyer. I got to take them. I gotta geoengineer those two hurricanes to their school. So I have to wake up at 6:30 every morning so I could steer those hurricanes away from my apartment. New Joma, thanks for the $1. Heat cheap M&M started sucking only later. Thank you very much for that. JM, thanks for the $2 and the thumbs up. Appreciate that. James Vanderzanden, thanks for the $1.99. U.S. Congress and VP are on 6-week vacation to campaign. That's true. Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here this morning. Let's smash that like button. Let's smash that like button on Rumble, too. Subscribe and follow. Let's get to 666 likes. We got 1,100 YouTubers in the chat. Let's hit that like button, get up to 666. And on Rumble, too, so we can get our sound drop in today. Really got to work those algorithms during the morning shows. Hey, folks, one small businessman based in Florida who you can support if you want is our friend Dan Richmond from the Hebe and Goy Show. So the Hebe and Goy podcast is a podcast about the daily unpleasantries of everyday life, co-hosted by our friend, the Motley Jew, Dan Richmond, who is the Hebe of the title. Hebe and Goy. The sense of humor of the show is really reflected in the logo, the Hebrew national font for the Hebe, and then the mayonnaise for the Goy. It's a very funny show, very smart show. Dan is a very smart and funny guy with a very similar sense of humor to the two of us. So if you like what we do and you want a sort of apolitical version of the Do Dissidents show, then go to hebeandgoy.com. Hebe and Goy, not ampersand. hebeandgoy.com, or type it into YouTube. They have a YouTube channel where they post all their podcasts and episodes there. So Hebe and Goy. Type that into YouTube and subscribe. And we hope Dan is doing well down there in Florida.
I've been seeing him in a few weeks.
Well, he called in about a week and a half ago. He called into the last supporter stream, I think. I don't think he called into the regular
I'm seeing
Q&A.
him for the Maiden show.
Oh, I thought you said you haven't seen him in a few weeks. No, Dan was very kind to invite Russell as his guest to the Iron Maiden concert in Jersey in a few weeks. So,
no, it's in Brooklyn.
Oh, it's in Brooklyn? I thought it was in Jersey for some reason. Oh, okay. So it's at where? Barclays?
It's at the Barclays, I think.
Oh, wow. For some reason, I thought it was in Jersey. I thought it was at the old Continental Airlines. But and it's not called that anymore. I don't know what it's called now. But I had that in my head for some reason. Alrighty, folks. We are going to move right along. So, folks, Barbra Streisand is very popular among the libs. But apparently this guy here Keith Edwards is not familiar with the Streisand effect.
I must admit I have a soft spot for Yentl.
Yeah, there you go. The Streisand effect, this guy hasn't heard of, apparently. Keith Edwards was the same guy who tweeted out the video of Shama Sawant, which went mega viral the other day. We did a segment on that, Shama saying, our goal is to rally Muslim and Arab voters to vote for Jill Stein in such numbers that they take enough support from Kamala to cost her Michigan and cost her the White House. And he bitched about that on Twitter, and it caused this very viral meltdown. Well, apparently he wanted to do it again. He says, breaking, as Dr. Jill Stein looks on, Jill Stein endorser Hassan Abdel Salam, who is the founder of Abandon Biden, now Abandon Harris, obviously, admits their goal is for Donald Trump to win the election. So let's take a look at this video.
No mistake, make no mistake, that this rumble of abandon guarantees a failure for the vice president, the loss of Michigan, and the loss of the White House. That we can depose the leaders who sit atop a superpower, a success that will happen immediately when we know the results on the 5th of November.
So there you go. And look, Jill Stein looking on as she looks on in the background. Dun, dun, dun. This is, like I said, once again, this didn't go as viral as the first one, but 677,000 views. He really gets a lot of eyeballs on this as if this is bad publicity. This is great publicity. Like we said last time, I've been wanting third-party candidates and activists to talk like this for the longest time. And the reason I wanted to do this segment, even though the last one was admittedly similar, is because one point that I wanted to make last time that I'll make this time is that this is really a reflection of Shama's skills as an organizer. Because Shama was really the glue that bound together the Abandon Harris and the Green Party. The event in Chicago was not a Green Party event. It was not an Abandon Harris event. It was a Workers' Strike Back event. So what Shama obviously saw was she saw these two movements that were sort of gaining momentum on parallel tracks, and she used her organization to sort of fuse them into something that can be more powerful than the sum of its parts, and that seems to be working. And, when we had Shama on our show a couple months back, we had about a half-hour debate of sorts about the efficacy of backing Jill Stein, because at the time we were hesitant to steer people in that direction, and we still are hesitant to tell people to spend your last $5 on the Jill Stein campaign. I wouldn't recommend that, but we do now plan, both of us, to write her in on November 5th, and I advise everybody watching to at least take a few minutes to vote for her on November 5th, whether she's on the ballot or whether you have to write her in. But, Shama's point all along was that we are going to use the Jill Stein campaign as a vehicle to organize an anti-war protest vote. And she really took these two movements and brought them together. That's what a pro does. That's what a winner does. And so, she turned out once again being right. I think she's played this very, very well. I think it was very, very smart to use her organization and her clout with Workers' Strike Back to sort of unite these two movements that were kind of running on parallel tracks. Like, they both kind of had the same sentiments and the same attitude about what was going on, but the key to organizing is to coalition build. Okay, there's a campaign season going on. We have the Greens running a campaign. We have Abandon Harris running a campaign. Let's bring these two organizations together. Not only do we make maximum impact on election day when we do that, but now we network with each other. So now whatever comes next, we have a bigger pool of people who is more united, who is better familiarized with each other. That's what it's all about. And so, we debated back and forth a little bit, but she ended up playing this exactly right, I think, which is not unusual for her. In fact, she almost always plays these things exactly right. So perhaps we should have just trusted her more at the moment.
That always carried a lot of weight with me tactically. The question, I don't think for you either. The question was never whether Shama's tactical instincts were right. It's, well, do we tell our people to go get involved in the Jill Stein campaign?
Right.
That's two different questions. I always, even as we critiqued it, I saw what she was doing, and I thought it was probably the right move, because you need these presidential campaigns are a great opportunity to bring everyone together around a mission, a focal point. You can get everyone in the same room around something like this, and it's much harder to do when you don't have that. And she's taken full advantage of it. I mean, we know from dealing with her when I was out in Chicago, man, she was blowing up our DMs like, yo, come check this out, which we did. We did. No, she stays on, and I'm sure with what she does, we're far from the only people she's dealing with, but she's such a relentless organizer. You might as well be, because you'll hear from her. If there's something that you can help with, she will reach out to you. And yeah, a lot of this is without Shama in the picture. Yeah, these things might have just kind of run in parallel.
Exactly. Yeah. So good on her. And, once again, this guy tweets out as if the first one didn't go badly enough. Although I guess there's no such thing as good press for him either. I mean, I guess he got good publicity, but the same guy who tweeted out the video about Shama seems now determined to amplify the point that the Greens and the Abandon Harris and Workers Strike Back are running a combative campaign against the Democratic Party, which I think is, spreading the message far and wide that these third parties should have been spreading from day one. You don't apologize. You don't say, well, we're not really costing the Democrats votes because the people who vote for Green wouldn't have voted at all if it weren't for the Greens. No, you lean into it. I mean, and look, that's true to a large extent. But it's also true that you're trying to radicalize people out of the Democratic Party. Right. And so say that. Say that. Like, that's your goal. Just say it. It gives you more power when you say that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
don't apologize for it. Don't run from it.
Well, this is what makes no sense. There's no reason to allow these people to intimidate you into playing nice. They're never going to support you anyway. Right. These people are so petty. They're so vindictive. Elizabeth Warren cannot get a cabinet position because she defied them a little bit. She asked some questions. She pointed out that the primary was rigged. That probably didn't sit too well with them. And then she backed off it, from what I remember. Then she was
Oh, yeah. She took it back.
And she took it back. That's not good enough for these people. You have to be their creature, body and soul, forever. Or it's like Mean Girls. They're little bitches. There's no reason to accommodate them. They want to call you a Putin puppet. You should wear a fur hat with a hammer and sickle pin next time you see them.
Just troll them.
These people are never, ever, ever going to care what concessions you give them. They're not honest actors. Going right at them. Yeah, we're going to burn your shit down. That's the only language they understand. That's why they accommodate the suburban Republicans.
Right.
They accommodate suburban Republicans because they don't own their vote. They got to understand you will burn their shit down just like those suburban so-called moderates will.
Right. They're afraid that the moderates are going to vote for Trump. And so they court them because they're afraid that if they don't court them, they're going to lose something. Right.
You want them to court you. Stop apologizing.
Right. Stop apologizing for yourself. Right. Say, hey, look. As the polling showed, the Arab American Institute did that poll. Almost all of these protest votes would go to Kamala if she passed an arms embargo. Like they would all just vote for it's not like it's not like they'll never vote for a Democrat under any circumstances. Polling shows, hey, if you stop funding the slaughter of their family members, they'll vote for you. Pretty fair deal, I'd say. So make that known. Make that known and make it known that unless and until they do that, you are not only not voting for them, you are organizing a boycott against them with the express written purpose of costing them the state of Michigan and, by extension, the White House. You say that very plainly and loudly, and let them tweet about it. Let them get angry about it. That just amplifies the message even more. That's why I can't believe this fucking guy did this again. He had almost 3 million views on the first one, and then he goes and does the same thing a second time.
Literally, you cannot buy that kind of publicity.
Exactly. All right, we got here. Hillary Hinton says Flight 11 terrorist passports made it through impact explosions, jet fuel fire, and collapse. But hurricane victims need to Sharpie info on their arms. Yeah, that is a pretty morbid detail. El Casador, thanks for the $2. My contribution to Russ's morning routine with the Kamala lookalike hooker. See if she gave you the munchies. Make you pay her, but keep the $1.99 change. Thank you for that very much. All right, what do we got over here? Mark Pugliese, thanks for the $5. Russ, whenever you express your communism skepticism, you remind me of what a dilettante you are.
Oh dear Lord! I saw somebody in the chat say, "I thought you don't believe in collective organizing." I'm not an anarchist. Listen, I have some questions about human nature that make me deeply skeptical of highly centralized power structures. That's basically what it comes down to. Now, I also have a deep skepticism of human nature that makes me skeptical of what we have, which is a free-for-all, which we just saw play out in real time in Florida with what these corporations did to people. Now, with China and with Vietnam, which I guess you could call successful examples, there's a question, is that communism or is that state capitalism really? Is that like a heavily regulated and managed capitalism? But I will tell you, with like the tone of that, a problem a lot of communists have are their adherents. You guys are some of the most just obnoxiously condescending people to deal with. Not everybody. We have our friend Tusker, who actually has persuaded me of a lot of ideas by just engaging in good faith debate. But that kind of like name calling, oh, I have the true answer, that doesn't really win anybody over. That might be why there's so few of you guys.
What's going on? Is this doing this? It's not scrolling. Hold on.
Your thing's not working?
No, it's the YouTube back end has given me problems the last couple of shows with this. The scroll is not scrolling. Okay, there we go. Eric Crusoe, thanks for the $5. Step back. I know what to do. I slept at a Holiday Inn Express last night. Thank you. Appreciate that. Sparky says, admit it, you avoid Aaron Bussell Mate not just because of his intimidating nickname, but also because you're afraid he'll expose you as CIA and FBI stooges eager to parrot their talking points. You must be joking, Sparky. I'm going to take that as a joke.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a joke.
I'm sure that's a joke. RBGH fam, thanks for the $10. Public scrutiny and ostracization are great tools to fight price gouging. I don't remember the talking point from Dems during COVID when it was subsidized. Good points. Gray Ghost, thanks for the $5. The libs who run with the Stein is a Putin puppet line are simply saying our government officials must really suck at blocking Russian interference. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Yes, why haven't they gotten that under control yet? All right. We're going to move on here. This is kind of a related segment to our previous one here, but this was another piece of video that went pretty viral. Mohammed Jalal, is Harris really the lesser of the two evils to the equally repulsive Trump? Genocide must come with a political price. Do not vote Harris. So this is from the Thinking Muslim podcast, a moving section, as he writes. And yes, this is a pretty moving section. This is a few minutes, but this makes a pretty passionate case. We've been talking a lot about this because, people have rightfully pointed out, hey, is Trump going to be any better on this issue? The answer is no. And so people like Mehdi Hassan will say, well, suppose Trump is worse. Shouldn't you vote for Kamala in that case? This gives a pretty eloquent and powerful response to that question.
survive again. 240,000 Palestinians.
Oops, sorry.
You survived 4 years of Trump. You could survive again. 240,000 Palestinians did not survive 4 years of Biden. You survived Trump. You survived it. Trump is going to be worse than Biden. Let's measure it. What do you mean relative to what happened to the Palestinians? Tell me what is so terrifying that you are willing to forgive the genocide in Gaza. Tell me what scares you so much that you are willing to step over Sidra's lifeless corpse with the legs blown off and say, excuse me, sorry. That you will step over Hind Rajab's cold corpse that was shot at 360 times by the Israelis while she sat in the car waiting for an ambulance that was blown by Israeli tank. That you step over Hind Rajab's body, sorry Hind. That you would step over Reem's body. Tell me what's so terrifying. You step over Reem, Ruh, spirit of my spirit. That you step over the child, you can't identify this child, the head's blown off. You step over them. You step over those 240,000 corpses to get to that ballot box. You step over all of them. You walk by the Palestinian refugees walking by. Where are you going? I'm going to the ballot box. Voting for who? You're too ashamed, embarrassed to say it at that time. You walk to the ballot box. You walk over those bodies, piles and piles of those bodies, drenched in the blood. You see those kids in those images of the hospitals, crushed by the rubble. Their arms are hanging, blood dripping for no other crime than some random people from the West said this land belongs to us. You will walk all over those corpses, go to the ballot box, vote for the one who did it to them, Jalal. Vote for the one who slaughtered them. Vote for the one who massacred them. Vote for the one who continued to lend every impunity to them. Vote for the one who broke the whole international order. To slaughter those children. To slaughter our brothers and sisters. To commit the most brutal genocide. You will cross all of those corpses to the ballot box. You will put a cross next to the name of Harris, the one who committed a genocide with Biden. And you will yell to those spirits and say, I did it for you. You will look at them in the eye and say, I voted this for you. You will say that I voted for the one who killed you. I voted for the one who gave the bombs to slaughter you. More bombs than Dresden. More bombs than Hiroshima. More bombs than Nagasaki. More bombs than World War II. I voted for the one who gave unfettered access to all those weapons. I voted for the one who sent the Marines to help kill you. And you will dare to look me in the eye and say you did it for Palestine. You did it for them. The nerve, the sheer arrogance of it. It's not for Palestine. It's for your comfort. It's for your status quo.
Yes, it's for your comfort. It's for your status quo.
Right. Exactly.
That's hard. I mean, I've watched that a couple times. It's still hard to watch. Yes. I mean, I would second all of that. The people in Gaza, they have to survive Netanyahu. Think about that. Think about, will we survive Trump? Yes, you will. You already did it once. We'll do it again. The people in Gaza have not survived Biden. That's an important point. They haven't survived Biden. They haven't survived anything for the past 76 years. They have to survive the Netanyahu government now.
Right.
They have to survive Israel. Like, the arguments that you have to vote for Kamala Harris because Trump would be worse. Well, I think he shoots that down pretty well. And I think he makes a more profound point, which is to say, look, you could try and mask it all you want, but you're voting Kamala in America because you like Tim Walz's universal free school lunch program, right? And so what's the price of a Palestinian child? A free school lunch. That's what you're voting for, to maintain a comfort to maintain a status quo here that under the worst of circumstances, suppose Trump wins the election and all of your worst fears about him come true. All of them come true. Even the ones that almost certainly won't come true. But let's say they all do. You're still living high on the hog compared to people who Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have aided and abetted the mass murder of. And I think it's important to have that context. And he puts it as much but not good.
When you really press the libs on that, they'll say, well, what about what Trump's going to do? And the best response to that I've seen is, what is he going to do? Dig up the corpses and kill them again?
Right.
Like, what is it? Don't pretend that your vote is partly harm reduction for the Palestinians. Kamala has emphatically said she does not support an arms embargo. Right. We're going to continue to fund Israel, and she wants to have the most lethal military in the world. So in what respect is Donald Trump going to be worse than that? You can't kill people twice.
Right.
And everything she's saying indicates she's going to give Netanyahu a free hand. There is nothing. Does it look to you like Netanyahu is exercising some kind of restraint because of the Biden administration? There are articles going around now that the U.S. is frustrated because the Israelis won't tell them what they're planning on doing to retaliate against Iran.
No, they said it's going to be a surprise.
It's going to be a surprise.
A surprise. A surprise. I mean, the balls of it, take all the morality out of it. The balls of it to tell your sugar daddy, hey, once you give us the money, we're going to surprise you with what we do with it. We're not going to tell you yet, but send those checks anyway.
To be fair, that ass is pretty sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but Netanyahu just released a video yesterday, basically threatening the Lebanese people to overthrow their government, or else they'll end up like Gaza. Basically admitting that we're mass targeting civilians in Gaza.
Right.
Ryan Grimm asked Morlock, isn't that a terrorist threat? We might cover that on Sunday. There's just so much to do today, and we do have an interview after the show. But yeah, he's making threats, not just against the people in Gaza, but the entire region. What did Tim Walz say on the debate stage against J.D. Vance? He talked about the essential validity of the expansion of Israel. Right. So, look, it's not just about Gaza at this point. And if it were about Gaza, that'd be more than good reason to boycott the Democratic ticket. Kamala and Tim Walz are going to support the expansion of this war to greater Israel.
Right.
Donald Trump will as well. Like there are just, like, I'm sorry to tell you there are no good answers, but I can't tell you there's a good answer if there's not. What am I supposed to do? Lie? But the rationale that you're voting for the Democratic ticket is some sort of harm reduction, that's nonsense. That's nonsense. How could you even begin to make that argument given what's happened?
Yeah, that's a fig leaf they wear. The finance minister, I forget his name. He's a peach. And we had too much to do today to really pursue this. Apparently in an interview, he just described Greater Israel, and not only including Lebanon, Syria, including parts of Egypt, which supposedly is the good country.
Right.
See, we're not actually after people who want to make peace with us. Sorry, right. My Siri is talking to me for some reason. So on the bright side, if there is a bright side, I will say this, and a lot of you have probably noticed this. I have never seen the libs so quiet about an election. Yeah, like some of them, they're like the dumbest of the dumbest of the dumb will be like, yeah, Kamala, yeah, Walt, but not really, man. They're being pretty quiet about it. Which does indicate, at least to some degree, they know what they're supporting. And they don't want to be out front saying, I support Kamala, and get the 10 responses, well, what about Palestine? They just don't even want to get into it. It's nothing like when Hillary was running, for example, and all day long. I'm with her. I'm with it. You are not seeing that with Kamala at all.
Nope. No, you are not. And so, look, I mean, as we've said, we've made clear in the past couple of shows, post-duopoly means post-duopoly. We're certainly not for Trump, but we're not for Kamala either. We're not for. I don't see how you can rationalize a vote for Kamala Harris as a method of harm reduction in this instance. And if this is your priority and this is your red line, then yeah, that has to be that.
No, what he said, it is a great illustration of the politics of the liberal class. It really is. Well, school lunch and the so-called progressives, where they all flipped on a dime. They were flirting. When it was Joe Biden, they would not endorse, particularly, podcasters in our space. And then when it became Kamala, they started to rethink it. Waltz was an excuse. It was really an excuse for all these liberals, particularly podcasters who make their money off libs who like to think that they're left. It gave them the excuse they needed to go home to the Democratic Party, which they never really leave. They just pretend to leave the Democratic Party. But when the election time comes around, they run cover for they just function as the left end of the MSNBC spectrum. Like their job, they are the catchers in the rye for the liberal class, right? They're out there to grab the outliers and sheepdog them back into the Democratic Party. Waltz was the plausible deniability they needed. No, we're not selling out. Look, the Democratic Party listened to us. They didn't pick the IDF veteran. They picked this. They picked this progressive governor. Look, we're having an impact on the party. Guys, come on. Come back in. The water's fine. Come on back into the Democratic Party. And that's it, man. I mean, look, we don't know what happens behind the scenes. We don't know who they talk to. We don't know who they get paid by. But it was pretty funny how just like drop of a dime, flip of a switch, all these commentators ran right back into the Democratic Party.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, folks, we're going to read an ad for our friends over at Rumble who are weathering this storm right now. This is why. Oh, no, it's not working. No, this keeps not working. Why does that?
I got to step away for 1 second.
All right, step away for 1 second.
I had a lot going on this morning.
All right, Russell's going to step away for 1 second. All right, let me try this one. There we go. All right. So we're going to tell you about Polymarket. It is campaign season, and Polymarket is the world's largest prediction market. So track election results in real time and see who's leading instantly. See odds react in real time to current events instead of days later like with legacy pollsters. This isn't some static poll that's already out of date by the time it's published. It's a living, breathing reflection of public sentiment in real time. No bias or media spin, just pure data. These are not polls. These are percent chances of the outcome. So if you want the clearest forecast of the 2024 election, you've got to check out Polymarket. It's the world's largest prediction market, and unlike polls or media headlines, it does give you those real-time odds on who's winning based on what thousands of people predict will happen. So instead of waiting for different poll reports that come out days after events or endless commentary, you can see the actual chances of a candidate winning updated by the minute. For example, right now, Kamala Harris has a 51% chance, which means if the election were held today, she'd win 51 out of 100 times. No media spin, just straight up probabilities. Start checking Polymarket right now at polymarket.com/elections to see how the odds are shifting, and definitely keep it open as we get closer to election night. You'll have a clearer picture before anyone else. So hit the link in the description and start tracking the election in real time with Polymarket, totally free, obviously. All righty. Beautiful. All right. Let's read some super chats and some Rumble rants here. Mean Girls is a good analogy, says Sparky. The establishment has the mentally adolescent or teenage girls, especially your boy Count Smirkula. That's right. Thank you, Sparky. Charles H. Russell, where are those Diddy brand eggs? Tisk, tisk. Can't talk about that over here. Not as much fun as we had over on Rumble. I have to drop the Rumble clip over there. So by the way, I do want to talk a little bit about the ad experience because a lot of people have reached out. So yeah, Rumble now shows mid-roll ads. which is frustrating when you watch a full-length live stream back. They show ads about every 7 or 8 minutes if you're logged in, every 5 minutes if you're not logged in, which on a 20-minute clip, that's about the same as YouTube. YouTube shows mid-roll ads on clips that are over 8 minutes, I believe. So on the clip side of things, to watch on Rumble is really not much different from watching on YouTube because you get about an ad every 7 or 8 minutes, just like you would here. For a 3-hour live stream, I do understand your frustration about them showing an ad every 7 minutes for 3 hours straight. They do not show during the streams themselves, but on the replays. So I have passed that feedback along. So just so you know, I have passed that feedback along to them. I do understand your frustration with that. It's a new thing that they're doing with the mid-roll ads. But we do understand that. And like I said, on the clip side, when you watch on Rumble, it's basically the same as YouTube. But for a 3-hour stream, it is tough. So thanks, guys, for bringing that to our focus. We have passed the word along. Just want to let you know that. RBGH fan, what Trump says is scarier than what we do, according to Bush Democrats. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, RBGH fan. Good point. Let's see here. Jose Alvarado, thank you for the $10. Every child should read Those That Walk Away from Omelas by Ursula Le Guin. Here's hoping they all decide to walk away from this cruel empire maintenance. I know her big quote about capitalism. I never heard that, though. Sparky, thanks for the $5. Trump may not be pro-Palestinian in the least, but knowing such conflict is bad for business, he might tell Israel to knock it off like Reagan did. Not as long as that Adelson money's coming in. I don't believe so, Sparky.
No.
I don't believe so.
If anything, he'll want to accelerate it so that it's over faster.
Right. That's what I think. And, he's more able to do that, in a sense, because he doesn't have to do this dance with his supporters to make it look like he really cares about the Palestinians.
Right.
So he doesn't have to drag out the timeline, which is all Joe Biden and Kamala have done. Understand, they have only extended the period of time over which this genocide takes place because they have to make it look like they're trying to rein
They have to pretend
Netanyahu in.
They have to pretend the civilian deaths are an oopsie.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. All righty. Let's see here. Ranger Biker lost in all the hurricane noises attention on a huge Georgia pool chemical plant fire that released chlorine gas and toxins potentially 6 times greater than East Palestine. Good times. Yeah, I saw a story where a guy who either testified about that or spoke publicly about that in some setting collapsed and died right after he talked about it because he was probably so affected by that. That's something we may do for Sunday.
I also saw a lot of people posting that Wyoming is on fire now and nobody's paying attention.
Is that true?
There are huge wildfires in Wyoming.
Wow, I did not know that. Yeah, a lot happening all at once. For sure. Okay. Let's copy paste over here. Beautiful. Hillary Hinton, you guys aren't wearing pants, are you? Of course we are. I got my gray jeans on.
All right, I've got a confession to make. This morning was so rushed that unbeknownst to Keaton, we did our pregame in my underwear.
Oh, really?
I was in my underwear for the pregame.
For the pregame, but not for.
But not for now. I have shorts on now. Yeah.
There we go. He's classing it up right now.
And it's purely psychological because who would know?
Right? Yeah. Who would know? Who would know?
You could be naked. Nobody's gonna know.
Nobody's gonna know. As long as you remember not to stand up.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So, folks, we are going to move right along here. We've been talking about Abandon Harris. We just played a great excerpt from the Thinking Muslim podcast about boycotting the Democratic ticket. Well, I tweeted out something to the effect that the Uncommitted movement is really the Sunrise movement of 2024. Remember how Sunrise made this big thing, this big show of how they weren't going to fall in line unless Bernie was the candidate in 2020. And then when the nominee became Biden, they all started jockeying for position with the Democratic Party. And they ended up doing exactly what the Uncommitted national movement is here. They're not technically making an endorsement, but they're urging people to vote against Trump and not vote third party. So here's the uncommitted national movement. Trump's Project 2025, can you believe this, isn't just a policy. It's a blueprint for more violence and repression, both in Palestine and here in the U.S. Trump's allies are openly pushing for the destruction of Palestinian human rights and silencing those who fight back. So they talk about Project 2025.
That'll show the Dems.
Yeah, right, exactly. They talk about Project 2025 in this video, and I'll just have you know the word Israel, because I did a word search on Project 2025, just curious to see what it says about Israel. It says the standard thing. We have to make sure they're able to defend themselves against their regional adversaries. It's mentioned 4 times in 920 pages. Page 126, page 217, page 288, page 306. Hamas mentioned once in that context. Gaza, not mentioned at all. They will make a claim in this video we're about to show you that Project 2025 calls for abolishing humanitarian aid to Gaza. As far as I can tell, that is not true. I have not read the entire book, but I've done some research. I've done searches for, Gaza aid. What Project 2025 does call for is to rein in humanitarian aid to woke countries. Basically, they took language from USA. They want to take language from USAID, language out that talked about gender equity or gender fluidity. Basically, it's they want to take their culture war.
It doesn't
worldwide.
sound like Gaza is going to fall under that category.
That's right. Gaza's not woke. Remember, folks, Gaza's not woke. So
Israel might fall under that category.
Israel, yeah, that's true. Israel may be too woke for them. That's interesting. So I just want to preempt that because I want to play the video pretty much uninterrupted. But they do make some claims in here that Project 2025 calls for the abolition of aid to Gaza, which, as far as I could tell, like I said, is not true. I have not read the entire document, but I've searched the key words that would lead me to that passage if it were in fact in there. It is not. Okay, so let's take a look at this video. Major Blue MAGA vibes here.
Project 2025 did was something clever Project 2025 did was put forth an objectively insane document that is so extensive it's hard to actually conceptualize individual parts, effectively saturating a very real threat. So today, I wanted to talk about the specific ways Trump and Project 2025 would be disastrous for Palestinian human rights. As a Palestinian American, the current administration's handling of this genocide has been beyond enraging and demoralizing. But the reality is that it can get worse. Nobody wants a Trump presidency more than Netanyahu, because that is his ticket to wiping Palestine off the map. Under Trump, U.S. foreign policy took a sharp turn that prioritized Israel's hardline right-wing agenda. During his administration, Trump moved the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem, recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights, and proposed a Middle East plan that effectively dismantled any pathway to Palestinian self-determination.
I mean, I'm sorry, I wanted to play the whole thing through. Can you believe this? I mean, can you believe this? Well, Trump moved the embassy to... The protest votes are going to Jill Stein in Michigan. This is a response. You're appealing to the left here. The left understands Trump is pro-Israel. You're trying to litigate who's worse amidst a mass slaughter. Right. Gaza is no more. It's no more. Fox News just aired some video that we were gonna maybe get to today. Doesn't look like we will. The place is no more. It's been erased. It's been erased. This is an extermination. This is an annihilation. You're talking about the Golan Heights in East Jerusalem. Yeah, that's reason to not be under any illusion Trump is going to be pro-Palestine. Granted, what are you doing here? What is the point of this? The point of this is to manufacture consent for Kamala Harris. That's the point of this. That's what the whole Project 2025. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? Project 2025? To think 6 months ago the Uncommitted movement would be cutting ads about Project fucking 2025 in October. I mean, that's pathetic. That is just fucking pathetic.
They follow the same path as the Sunrise Movement and Our Revolution, all of these other supposedly outside groups challenging the Democratic Party. And again, as with podcasters in our space who flipped on a dime when Waltz was picked, we don't know who calls them. We don't know who pays them. We're going to get into that on the B side of this. But, with the Young Turks, they got that Katzenberg money, and then they started changing their tune. We'll tell you what happens when we get over 100,000 subscribers, knock on wood. We'll see if somebody tries to arrange a meeting at the bus station behind a locker with a sack full of cash.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, no, it really is. It really does make you wonder.
But what's coming next under Project 2025 is even more dangerous. This initiative promises to cut all humanitarian aid to Gaza and the West Bank.
Okay, once again, I did not find that in the language. What I saw was it basically an exporting of the right-wing culture war as conditioning aid to countries that don't, value, what Western Christian conservatives value. That's what I've seen. Again, can I categorically say it's not in there? No, but I can 99% say that. I searched for it. I looked for it. I did word searches to see where that would have been in there. It's not there. If it were in there, don't you think that would be a story? Don't you think that would have come up like in the tens of thousands of tweets about this issue? Don't you think? And about Project 2025? It's not in there.
Well, and also, if you look at this video, they spent some money on this. Or somebody did, I mean, I'm not saying it's $1 million production, but
she's in a studio there. She's got
this was professionally put together. So, how'd they pay for that? How much money they got coming in? But did somebody else pay for it? Again, we'll take a look at that.
Closing off not just the meager resources getting in, but one of the only points of contact Gaza has with the outside world.
There cannot be between Jordan and Israel, within a few miles of Tel Aviv or Jerusalem or Haifa, there cannot be a state run by Palestinians because...
David Friedman, Trump's former ambassador to Israel, is pushing for the annexation of the West Bank and has openly advocated for expelling Palestinians from Gaza, making it clear that there's no place for Palestinians in their own land.
In Gaza's waterfront property.
Where's the place for them now?
We should play it through.
There's no Gaza now. Yeah. There's no Gaza. Where's the place for them now?
Very valuable to...
Jared Kushner has echoed these sentiments, suggesting Gaza could be turned into a valuable waterfront property if Palestinians are forcibly relocated, proposing the entire population be moved to the Negev desert, allowing Israel to finish the job. These policies signal a future where Israeli expansion is no longer just tolerated by the US, but it's encouraged.
And once back in the White House, he will also keep his promise to help Israel win the current war without worrying about what the rest of the world might think.
Trump's top donor, Miriam Adelson, has pledged over $100 million to support his return to office, praising his past actions and pushing for even more aggressive pro-Israel policies. She's made it clear that Trump is viewed by Israel's right wing as a savior figure who will deliver on their most extreme goals, including massively expanding settlements. But the threat doesn't just stop overseas. Here at home, Project 2025 would severely limit activism by revoking legal protection for human rights organizations and criminalizing protests against Israeli policies, undermining our First Amendment and silencing the few voices advocating for Palestinian rights. Who will be elected in November is clear. It's Trump or it's Harris. And we have to orient less towards who is the better candidate and more towards what is the better anti-war approach in building our collective power. It's clear Netanyahu will be doing everything in his power to get Trump elected. And we have to do everything in our power to stop him.
Okay, so that's an endorsement of Harris. That's a Harris campaign ad. Like, what does uncommitted mean exactly? Why would you call yourself that? That's false advertising. Can they be sued by the FCC for that? Or
of course. I mean, it's plainly an endorsement of Kamala Harris. We have to stop Trump from winning. Right. It's either Trump or Kamala. And
like, what do you mean by uncommitted? I don't understand. Why are you called uncommitted? You should be called Muslims for Harris.
Muslims for Harris. Right. Palestinian sellouts for Harris. Western Palestinian PMC sellouts for Kamala Harris. That's what they should be called.
This is an ad that would be released by the DNC.
Of course.
It's playing all the hits. Okay. And look, it's not that this is not true as far as it goes, but you could also intercut that with Harris saying we're going to continue to fund Israel. We're absolutely not going to do an arms embargo. Tim Walz, even as governor, took these positions regarding Israel, same exact positions. It's our friend in the Middle East. We have to support Israel. So, I mean, it really, in the end, yes, rhetorically, Trump is more extreme because he doesn't, as you say, he doesn't have a base to please.
Right.
That he has to pretend. So really, it's a difference between rhetoric rather than action, because the action is the same. These people are dead. Their homes are gone. Netanyahu has made it very clear. The U.S. is begging him to tell them what his plans are in Iran, and he's telling them to go get their fucking shine box. As long as you're going to fund Israel, as long as you're going to equip Israel, which we are, in the end, what's going to happen in Israel is what Netanyahu wants to happen. It doesn't matter who the president is.
Of course.
They've made that very clear.
This is Gaza now. This was the Fox News segment. I can't pull it up on the screen. I have too many screens open. That's Gaza now. Is there a place for the people of Gaza there?
Right.
That's a livable place?
Right.
No. That looks like a nuclear fallout zone.
Right.
That's what it is right now. Oh, this Trump ambassador says they should be expelled from Gaza. They won't even have a place in their homeland. That's their homeland. That's what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have turned their homeland into. So what the hell are you talking about? Have some dignity and come out and say, with great reservation, we're endorsing Kamala Harris because we feel Trump would be worse. You'd be a sellout. You'd be a piece of garbage. But you'd be honest. This is almost more effective propaganda for Democrats, the fact that she's doing this without endorsing. This is what sheepdogging is. It's all about convincing people that they can maintain their radicalism while at the same time being co-opted. That's the point. Right? So this wouldn't be as effective because there is a group called Muslims for Harris, who I respect more than the uncommitted people at this point, because at least they're honest about what they're arguing.
Yeah,
Uncommitted is saying, no, we're not endorsing her, but it's either going to be Harris or Trump, and so we have to stop Trump. I mean, anybody who's not a moron understands that as a de facto process of elimination endorsement of Kamala Harris. A first grader would understand that logic.
All of this assumes that we have a functioning democracy where you go and you wrestle with the issues and you lobby and you persuade. We do not. You know, I was just I did the tour of Congress, and of course they have a whole museum portion where you go through the history of Congress, and they actually have a game where you try to get a bill passed. That they should really commercially release that. I don't know if they have awards for funniest game of the year. But you know, it all works the way it's supposed to. Right. You play this game, you persuade members to support your bill, and you get experts to testify. It's such a joke. But this is also what you get when you watch the corporate media. It's all very much within that vein. The overall message is that you actually have a working government, and you do not. The underlying argument is, hey, it's you know, the system's rotten, but it's the best system ever invented, and it's what we have, and if we're outside the tent, we're not going to be able to get anything done, and we have to work with the people who are more sympathetic to our views, and what good is it going to do if our mortal enemy gets elected? You know, it's all that shit, which it's part of the reason it's persuasive is it's easier. It's hard to fight this system.
Right, of course.
It's hard to fight the establishment.
Yep.
If you, it is much easier to just get virtue signaling points for claiming to have these principles, but alas, I am forced to compromise by the realities of democracy. Right? You know, then you get to have it both ways.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. Folks, we're at 634 likes. Let's smash that like button 32 more times so we can get that going. All right, we want to get the rest of this segment done because, you know, Russell speculated that, hey, you know, just how much influence do moneyed groups and moneyed parties have on organizations like Uncommitted. We know that they have hired a TikTok army. Harry Sisson is one of those people, and apparently they have made efforts to expand and grow that TikTok army. So here is a TikTok influencer named Madeline Pendleton, who has almost 2 million TikTok followers, 1.8 million. And then she has a couple 100,000 followers on Instagram. So when you add those two things up, she's got over 2 million followers on her video social media channels. And here she is saying that the Democrats offered her 15 grand to shill for them on TikTok.
Thousands of dollars to make videos talking about. Did you guys know that the Democratic Party is paying people on TikTok thousands and thousands of dollars to make videos talking about how awesome the Democratic Party is? I know, because they've offered me nearly $15,000 to do just that.
Did they say you could lay down in your shoe closet and to make the video? You don't even have to go to a studio or stand up. You could just kind of take a nap and do it before you fall asleep.
They like that. That's authenticity.
That's authenticity. It's real. It's real. It's candid.
And to take attention away from that whole genocide thing. And I also know, because I've unfortunately had to follow mutuals who started posting content suspiciously in line with the pitches I received to do just that within around 48 hours of me receiving those pitches. And suspiciously, nobody is disclosing on TikTok that they are getting paid to make videos just like this. So, since nobody wants to tell you the Democrats are paying them thousands of dollars to talk about how awesome the Democrats are, I'm going to tell you, you guys should be aware that when you see videos like that, the Democrats are actively paying people to talk about how awesome the Democrats are. I've received 2 pitches so far to date. I received one that was to make ongoing videos monthly leading up to the election. And I received another one that was to fearmonger specifically about Project 2025 and the Heritage Foundation. If you follow me, if you listen to my podcast, you know I have 4 hours of content talking about the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025, okay? It's not good. It's all ass. But I resent the way that the Democrats are trying to fearmonger like it's something new and some unique horror you need to be terrified of in order to coerce you into voting for them with bad information. The Heritage Foundation has been asked since it was incepted in the 1970s, and Project 2025 is just the newest name for the Mandate for Leadership, which is their document that comes out every single election cycle and has since 1980, trying to influence Republican politicians on how to vote. And you also should probably know that Heritage Foundation trustees are actively endorsing both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, and that Barack Obama famously worked with them in the past for policy. Are they conservative? Yes, but they're not exactly super partisan, and that probably also is why Kamala Harris is saying that she will definitely want to seat a Republican in her cabinet. I keep saying, you know, socialists are punching right, and the Democrats are standing there. Why are you standing there? Anyway, since people making videos online aren't disclosing to you that they're getting paid thousands of dollars to do so, I just want you, consumers of media, to know that people are being paid thousands of dollars to make those videos. Yeah.
Phil?
That's so strange. She specifically says she's getting pitched to make Project 2025 videos, and this uncommitted, supposedly uncommitted group makes a video that looks like it cost a little bit of money, not exorbitant, but it was professionally done, about Project 2025. Connection? You be the judge.
Yeah. I mean, certainly not outside the realm of possibility, I would say. I would say 99% they got paid to do that. Because why would you pick that specifically? Yeah, why that? Project 2025?
Why would you talk about, wouldn't you really want to talk more about just the Trump part? Okay, that makes sense, right? But why would you spend so much time on Project 2025 if no one told you to do that? So when you put that together with what she says, I would say 99% they were working for the DNC.
Well, because, yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Like, you can make the case against Trump on the Israel-Palestine issue without mentioning Project 2025.
Right. Why would you go there? That's kind of like a weird turn, especially given what you uncovered, that's not even accurate.
It's not even accurate.
Now you're talking about they're stretching to talk about Project 2025, something that the Democrats have been pounding as a key talking point for as long as this election's been going on. Right. Why? Like, why would they pick that as a main talking point if no one told them to? That combined with what she's saying, and I believe her, Yeah, man. They got paid to make that video by the DNC.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a DNC. I mean, look, the DNC is they're the organization, and the Democratic Party, the official, Kamala campaign, they're the ones trying to shoehorn Project 2025 into every argument.
Right.
Like, why would Uncommitted need to go there? They don't have to. And as I've said, at best, they're stretching the truth. At worst, outright lying about the humanitarian aid to Gaza being banned within the documents.
Right.
So why would they go there unless there was some influence and, some incentive from the Democratic Party? I mean, it stands to reason that there would have to be. Because you could make the argument against Trump on this issue pretty easily without going there. And I'm sure Uncommitted understands that. I'm sure they know that.
Right. Yeah, no, they are paid operatives telling you that they're a grassroots political group advocating for Gazans, but they have been bought by the Democratic Party like so many other groups. You look at this, and yeah, man, look at the Sunrise Movement. Look how our revolution evolved. Look what happens with these groups. And we'll tend, when we speculate on things like this, to say, well, they get co-opted by the system, and that's true, but we don't talk enough about these people are getting paid. They're getting paid.
Right. Yep. I mean, I think that makes total sense. I think it makes total sense, especially just given the lack of logic in including Project 2025 in that video.
Doesn't make any sense that would happen organically.
Doesn't add up. Something certainly fishy. Noah Goop says it's not a genocide, it's joinocide. Kamala 2024. Thank you.
I like that one.
Raven Last says Greater Israel Project includes territory from Egypt, Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Iraq. Who knows if they would even stop there if they accomplished that? God forbid. Thank you, Raven. Appreciate that. Miss Me With It. I like that name. A plant that processes quartz for semiconductors was destroyed in North Carolina. Apparently the whole world gets it from that particular place. Nobody talking about it. Not good. Yeah, no, the impacts of this are going to be very, very wide and long-lasting. God's Dems clearly made a calculated choice to do nothing about Gaza and try to court soft-core Republicans instead. Absolutely, yes. That's why Kamala's running around saying she'll have a Republican in the cabinet. Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And if you look at the polling, we talked about this on the last show and in a show a month back where we did a more thorough look at this. Large majorities of those upper Midwest blue wall Rust Belt voters want a ceasefire. Large majorities. Like north of 67%. Majorities still, not as large, grant you, but majorities, not of Rust Belt Democrats, but of Rust Belt voters, want to condition, if not end outright, Israel aid. And so there's no doubt that the politically smart decision would be to move left on this issue, and she won't do it. And you're exactly right, because they want the moderate Republicans in their coalition for good. They've been salivating over this for a very long time. That's what, starting with Chuck Schumer saying, for every blue-collar voter we lose, we're going to gain 2 Republican women in the suburbs. That's who they want in the tent. They don't want the left in the tent. And so, yeah, it is absolutely correct to say that they are making a calculated choice to remain right-wing on Israel to bring in some of the moderate conservatives. That's absolutely what they're thinking. Cool Blue, Uncommitted movement, yet another con job in the scam operation, a.k.a. the Democratic Party.
Yep.
Happens every time. Now we're starting to sense this soon. And, it was always very obvious to me once the Uncommitted said, well, we're organizing an Uncommitted primary vote, but we still plan on voting against Trump in the general. You can see that a mile away.
Right.
You can see that a mile away. The only thing I cautioned people against was lumping in the Abandon Harris people with them, because I knew there were sort of 2 protest votes in the primary. There was one who was going to stick it out to the general and one who wasn't.
Well, Uncommitted, they were the ones who were begging to have a Palestinian on stage.
Yeah, they wanted a speaker on stage. They wouldn't even let them speak. They wouldn't even let them, not just speak, they wouldn't let them endorse Kamala. They were going to come on and bend the knee. They were going to actually issue an endorsement. And they said no. you're not allowed on because we can't take a chance that you won't go off script and say something, because they had to approve their speech. They did approve they submitted a written speech and they read it outside of the DNC once they were denied the opportunity to say it on stage. So what? The Democrats were either afraid they would go off script, or even the speech was too much. Even the speech is too much. We just can't have that at all. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, fuck them. I mean, it's the most obvious thing in the world. Sparky, thanks for the $2, says correction mentality. That's okay. I got you, Sparky. It'll be interesting to see, says Sparky, if RFK Jr., Tulsi, and Trump are the hardcore Zionists that they portray themselves. Sadly, they very well may be. Yes.
We are seeing people, and what Nick called incredible cope, say, yeah, no, Trump is just playing along for now.
Yeah.
Just wait until he's president, and then you're gonna see. He was president.
He was president.
He moved the embassy to Jerusalem. They have a village there with his name on it. He was president. Come on.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
Gavin Hillick, thanks for the €2. Quote, I'm Palestinian, vote for genocide, sick stuff. Yep, absolutely. Mr. Fancy Pants, thanks for the $9.99. At most 2 election cycles before Project 2025 becomes a Democrats' platform. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. I mean, their immigration platform is now more or less Donald Trump's from 2016. Right. So that's a good point. Okay, we are going to move right along here. What do we got here? Oh, yeah, we got a couple segments about the Grayzone. Okay, so folks, as Netanyahu issues threats to the people of Lebanon that, hey, if you don't rise up and overthrow the government, you're going to end up like Gaza, expanding this war into greater Israel. Now it seems like it is a matter of when, not if, you will have an official start of the Third World War. Liam Cosgrove, who's done some great work for the Grayzone in D.C., he's the one who famously caught up to Jamal Bowman about a year and a half ago and pressured him on Ukraine funding. That's the viral clip for Bowman. Putin's a madman. That was Liam Cosgrove chasing him down. So here's Liam Cosgrove finally offering a moment of catharsis, saying what we've all been sort of thinking for the past year or so vis-a-vis Count Morlock of the State Department, Matthew Miller.
So Israel is still poised to strike Iran, and in July, Blinken said that Iran was 1 to 2 weeks away from developing a nuclear weapon. So I guess for all we know, they might have one by now. And meanwhile, in Ukraine, they've struck deep within Russian territory several times, as deep as 300 miles from the border. And in that case, we don't have to guess. We know that Russia has the largest nuclear arsenal on the planet, as many as 6,000 warheads. And so one of the risks of arming militaries that are striking in the territories of nuclear powers is that one of those gets deployed, and then it could escalate very quickly from there. So it's rarely discussed, but it's important to address that the nuclear risk is real, and it could very abruptly mean the end of what humans have worked for thousands of years to collectively achieve. And us today are very lucky to live with the fruits of that achievement, and I feel like we're treating the risks kind of brazenly. So my question for you is, we often hear in response to these concerns that, well, Putin, Khomeini, they're war criminals, they're terrorists, as if they're too inherently evil or immoral for us to negotiate with. But meanwhile, this administration has financed a genocide in Gaza for the last year, and every day you're up there denying accountability for it. So, I mean, what gives you the right to lecture other countries on their moral...
So if you have a policy question for me, I'm happy to take it. If you want to give a speech, there are plenty of places in Washington where you can give a speech.
Yeah, but people are sick of the bullshit.
He asked you a question. He said, what gives you the right to lecture other countries about human rights violations? That's a valid question. He was setting it up there a little bit because most people in Washington never hear arguments like that. That's part of the reason why we are stuck in a doom election between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, because these questions are not asked in the D.C. area. So he did ask you a question. He took 60 seconds, God forbid, to set it up and then asked you what gives the United States, the State Department, Anthony Blinken, who has a lot of smoke for all of these foreign leaders who violate human rights as we fund the genocide and agitate for nuclear war. That's a question. That's a real question. He's not soapboxing there. He set it up for a minute, God forbid.
Has no one thought of bringing in a full-length mirror and running up to him with it?
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, that you
Once
get thrown
people
out of there
see that
pretty
he
quick.
doesn't cast a reflection,
Yeah, yeah. He
the
asked the
truth will
question.
be revealed.
Let me put this back, and then the capper on this.
They're terrorists, as if they're too inherently evil or immoral for us to negotiate with. But meanwhile, this administration has financed a genocide in Gaza for the last year, and every day you're up there denying accountability for it. So, I mean, what gives you the right to lecture other countries on their moral?
So if you have a policy question for me, I'm happy to take it. If you want to give a speech,
No, but
there are plenty of places in Washington where you can give a speech.
Yeah, but people are sick of the bullshit in here. I mean, it is a genocide. You are abetting it, and you are risking nuclear war in Ukraine for this proxy war.
Plenty of other places to give a speech. Go ahead.
Thank you, Matt. Bangladesh is
Moved on. I mean, good for him for finally saying that, you know. And like I said, I think it's a legitimate question. On what authority do we lecture other countries about human rights? Because Anthony Blinken, who this guy works under, makes a lot of speeches to that effect. So what gives you the authority to do that, given the fact that you're not willing to negotiate with a nuclear power in Eastern Europe, and you're funding a genocide right now? Like, why should we heed the words of your boss? That's a real question. That's a legitimate question.
Well, these are the last days of American impunity. We didn't have enough time, but there was an interesting interview with Lavrov that just came out, and I believe it was Newsweek. And he laid out what the Russian terms are for not just a ceasefire. He specifically said beyond a ceasefire, permanent peace,
An end to the war. Yeah.
An end of the war. And, you know, essentially they keep the territories in the east. They keep the Crimea. Ukraine agrees never to become nuclear, never to be part of NATO. Basically what they've been saying from the beginning of
From
the
before
war.
the invasion, which would have avoided the whole war.
From before the invasion. And, well, in fact, they probably could have saved the Eastern Territories as independent provinces if they just accepted it before he felt compelled to admit.
Correct.
But one of the things he said that was very interesting was the world is changing, and the America seems to be the last one that hasn't caught up. These old arrangements and circumstances are not going to hold anymore. We're going to have to make new agreements that reflect the world we live in now. Basically saying the old post-war NATO hegemony is over. That's it. You're going to have to adjust to to BRICS, to China, to other rising powers, to America being 1.8 trillion in debt, right? Having this possibly unsustainable levels of debt. We're paying as much interest now as we pay for the military budget, which in and of itself, the military budget is a disgrace. So yeah, man, these are the last days, I think, when America is going to be able to conduct itself with this kind of cavalier arrogance, especially because it has lost all pretense to moral authority. Like America will really never be able to lecture the world on human rights again without being laughed at.
Right, because all of that quote unquote goodwill that we supposedly had after the Cold War on our side, and I say quote unquote because there was never any real goodwill. We had a chance to
it
make...
depended. So in some countries, yes, some places no.
But what I'm saying is we had a chance to make permanent peace with Russia after the Cold War, and we chose not to. So that's what I mean. But there was never really any goodwill on our part that was earned.
Sure. I thought you meant globally.
No, I'm just saying, like, if we wanted to actually create permanent peace with Russia, we had the opportunity to after the Cold War.
Sure.
We chose not to, and we
chose
to continue to antagonize them.
We sent in Goldman Sachs to rape them.
Exactly. So there was never any real goodwill, but there was the appearance of at least calm waters.
Right.
And we have now squandered any appearance of goodwill or any illusion of goodwill that came with that time, to the point where now as he was saying, which is why it was important that he set up his question the way he did, as he was saying, given the fact that we are more interested in demonizing these foreign leaders than negotiating with them for the purpose of avoiding annihilation, because these are nuclear armed powers, we have a responsibility as human beings whose first purpose is supposed to be, at a very basic level, perpetuation of the species. Don't we have a responsibility as human beings to negotiate with nuclear armed powers? Why are we more and we seem to be much more interested in demonizing them, which is only going to increase the chances of a nuclear conflict. And then obviously the most egregious human rights violation of our lifetimes is happening with the support of your boss as he lectures countries like Russia, Iran, and China on the issue of human rights. And so the reason the age of impunity is over is because those questions are becoming impossible to ignore. Now, when they come up in a State Department briefing room, what does he do? He brushes them aside. And this is why I say this is how you get yourself into an electoral space that's so hopeless, because all of that consciousness is deliberately filtered out of the electoral process. It's deliberately filtered out to the point where when you go to a campaign events, like when I was going to New Hampshire and you go to a Nikki Haley rally and she's talking about benefits being doled out for Social Security, right? She's talking about all of these, very kitchen table issues amongst middle-class Americans. Well, what's happening to the middle class? It's shrinking. The people who those issues have any relevance for is shrinking. Those are the people who decide who wins and who loses. That's why the election is so close. Because despite the Biden administration's record, there is this abortion issue which really animates middle-class suburban women. And so that's where the decisions are made now. We don't ask these questions of anyone in power anymore. That's why when he got that question, he just insulted him. Well, if you're going to soapbox, there's plenty of places to give a speech. Moving on. They deliberately suppress and ignore questions like that and thoughts like that and ideas like that. They can't let that into the political space in a mainstream way, because once that happens, anything can happen. All bets are off. That happened to a certain extent, not around this set of issues, but in 2016. That's what happened. You had this populist surge where all of a sudden the very underpinnings of globalism and free trade were questioned all around the world. And what did it do? It just flooded into the space to the point where it was unstoppable. That's why you had Brexit. That's why you had Trump. They can't have that happen again, and they have adjusted. They've gotten smarter. That's why this race is 50-50.
Yeah, well, a lot of people, and nobody can ever tell the day. It's like predicting the weather, economics. It's pretty clear that the underpinnings of America's global economic dominance are being undermined rapidly. And when America is no longer able, that's what all this military presence around the world is really about. It's forcing the world to trade on our terms at gunpoint.
Right.
Get ourselves cheap resources, get ourselves cheap labor. And as much as a lot of the country is already living in poverty, when that shit comes apart, you ain't seen nothing yet. When the world stops buying our treasury bonds, we stop being able, I know MMT, it's not going to work out that way. I'm sorry. When people stop buying our treasury bonds, Americans in generations have never experienced the level of deprivation and poverty that you're going to see come about. And it's going to get very ugly because you're dealing with a population. One of the things you saw in that Springfield story, saw the factory worker wanted to hire the Haitians because so many of the people there were drug addicts.
Yep.
They were unreliable. It's a very broken, damaged population. It's a population that's really been psychologically, emotionally, and physically injured by deindustrialization. You take a country like that and you make things exponentially worse, on top of the cultural tensions and conflicts we have, the loss of a real belief and vision of ourselves as one nation that can disagree without being disagreeable, that we have a shared project that we're all a part of, that's gone. Wow, man. I don't think you'll have civil war where part of the army is fighting part of the army, but I think you'll have a de facto civil war where regions of the country are fighting other regions of the country in a substantive way.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, because I saw somebody said in the chat, crack. No, the drugs that they're hooked on now are the drugs that, to add on top of everything Russell said, what did we do? We let the Sackler family go into these towns and cities and sell 80 milligram legalized heroin pills to them. Yeah. So sabotaged in a very real sense.
It is not. This is not the population that America had in the Great Depression. This is a population that is not emotionally, spiritually, morally equipped to deal with a total economic collapse like that.
Right. Agreed. Sparky, thanks for the $10. Flattened but not finished after Israel fizzles out. BRICS investment coupled with the return of huge Palestinian diaspora will building in their blood will rebuild Gaza quicker than people think. I hope you're right, Sparky. Gaza's been constantly rebuilding since Israel took them from Egyptian administration in 1967. As Israel went after them piecemeal, it can be easier building a new house than fixing an old one. Again, I hope you're right, Sparky. Kevin G. Uncommitted are basically the old Bernie bros, the ones who think The Guardian is a left-wing anti-war paper. Yeah, yes. Sparky says Norm Finkelstein is pessimistic about Palestine since Israel's flattened and it has influenced Aaron Mate, but I prefer to be optimistic. Let's see what October 25th BRICS meeting produces. Thank you, Sparky. We should try to get Norm at Jose's event in the city. I should tell them, we can.
He's not going to do that.
Why not?
I honestly don't think he's going to get involved with the LaRouche event.
All right. Well, we'll see. Yeah, that's right. We could. What is going on here? Error, your encoder. What is going on? Are we coming through good on YouTube? I think we're coming through all right. This YouTube studio back end is really giving me a hard time lately. Not good. Not good. How are we coming through over there on the YouTube chat? We coming through all right? Saying I got a problem on my end, but I don't think so. Chat seems normal. All right. Here we go. Eric Husso. So Schoolhouse Rock has been lying to me about how a bill becomes a law. Are they lying about conjunctions too? Thank you.
I mean, going through it, it reminded me of the scene in Rodney Dangerfield's Back to School where he's taking the Harvard business class about how you put up a building. And Dangerfield says to the, snobby Harvard professor, "Oh, you're forgetting a whole bunch of things. Well, first you got to grease a lot of inspectors before you even start to draw up the plans. And then you got to deal with the boys at linen removal. And I don't know if you know who runs that organization, but it ain't the Boy Scouts."
Right. Yep. Stoop sign, thanks for the $1. I gave them the Golan Heights, so I invite someone in and say, "Give me 10 minutes on the Golan Heights," so I give it to him. Bing, bang, boom. Trump pretty much about meeting with Adelsons. Yep, absolutely. Miserable lib, bloodthirsty Israeli citizens overwhelmingly support Trump over Harris, as if Biden and Harris haven't let them slaughter enough Palestinian children. Yep. Well, there's no doubt Netanyahu prefers Trump.
Yeah, that's why I have no patience for the attempt to blame Netanyahu, as if there's a division between the population generally and Netanyahu. Right. There's no such thing as the liberal Israeli.
Right. Sparky says, don't forget about Grayzone correspondent Jeremy Lafredo. We have not. Being arrested by Israel. Hope he doesn't end up like Gonzalo Lira, abandoned if not sent to doom by the U.S. State Department. We are going to cover that next, Sparky. Did you see Aaron Mate on Judge Napolitano's Judging Freedom? I saw he was on there. The judge asked him about Jeremy Lafredo, and Aaron was pretty somber about his situation. Not good. I haven't seen that interview, but I do know he was on there, so I will take a look at that. Thank you, Sparky. All righty, folks. We are going to cover that right now, actually. So, on October 8th, 7:55 p.m., Andre X on Twitter says, "Today I was beaten, kidnapped, and blindfolded and taken to a military base by the Israeli occupation forces, together with 4 other journalists. 2 of us were held for 11 hours without charges. My phone was confiscated, stolen, and 1 of us is still in custody. Full story soon." Max Blumenthal then tweets out the following morning, I've just learned that Jeremy Lafredo was among the journalists arrested by the Israeli military and is still in jail. His phone has been confiscated. That's all I'm able to say for now. So Jeremy Lafredo has been covering Israel on the ground for quite some time. Yeah. He had a viral video about Israelis blocking aid into Gaza. That was about probably 6 months ago, I want to say, that was aired. And now he is one of these 4 journalists who was detained. And as of this stream, to my knowledge, unless something broke while we were on the air, he has not been released. Wyatt Reed, also from the Grayzone, says it's been over 24 hours since the Grayzone's Jeremy Lafredo was among 4 journalists beaten, blindfolded, and taken to an Israeli military base. The other 3 were released. Jeremy remains in Israeli custody. His phone has been seized. More info to come. So we're waiting on more info here. Here's DD Geopolitics, who quotes that. There's a picture of Jeremy there. Now, this was posted on October 6th. While on the ground in Israel, I was able to track down the impact sites of Iranian missiles on key Israeli military and intelligence installations, including Nevatim Air Base and Mossad headquarters, despite the Israeli military censor's official ban on publishing the locations. For those listening on audio, that was Jeremy's own tweet along with a video that he published to Twitter and on the Grayzone's YouTube channel. Now, when he talks about an official ban on publishing the locations, he's talking about the locations of the missile landing. Israel didn't want the public to know the coordinates of where the missiles landed, ostensibly, and I tend to buy into this, that they did not want it to seem as if the missiles were intended to strike military targets. They wanted to make it seem like they were intended to hit civilian areas. The locations of the Nevatim Air Base and Mossad headquarters are publicly known. In the video that he puts out here, we're going to show a piece of this. The cab driver points to the Mossad headquarters, so that's obviously common knowledge in Tel Aviv. And the Nevatim Air Base is on Google Maps. If you just do a Google search of the air base, the maps come up with the exact coordinates of its location. So he didn't reveal top secret locations. He revealed where the missiles landed. Right. And those were not being censored for any national security purpose. Those are being censored for propaganda purposes because they wanted to categorize them as intended for civilians when, in fact, it seems like, according to the location of the strikes, they were intended to hit military targets. So this was not a national security issue for Israel that he violated by publishing the coordinates of secret locations. He did not do that. He did not do that. He simply defied their propaganda motives in censoring where these landed. That's a very important thing to point out, I think. So Matt Orfala says American journalist Jeremy Lafredo was arrested after reporting censored news in Israel. Sharing his X posts is now disabled. That's weird. Sharing his X post is now disabled, and now his posts are now protected. I don't know if this occurred before or after his phone was confiscated by Israeli forces. Hey, I thought big free speech warrior Elon Musk didn't comply with foreign countries' censorship demands. I thought he's a big man standing up for free speech because America is not subject to Israeli censorship rules. We are allowed to speak freely here. We have a First Amendment here. So why is free speech warrior Elon Musk honoring Israeli censorship requests by protecting the posts and preventing the shares of an American journalist? That seems out of character for such a free speech warrior like Elon Musk, does it not?
Are you saying that Elon Musk is not our savior?
Yeah, seems that way to me.
Mind blown.
Yeah. Surprising stuff.
It's almost like he's a strike-breaking, union-breaking scumbag billionaire that no working person should be looking up to. It's almost like if you look up to someone like that, you have very low self-esteem and have been convinced to hate your own class and to worship the people who oppress you.
Right. So where is everybody on this? That's a good question. Like, where is it? Because there's been a lot of reporting about how we need to stand up for our First Amendment values when the issue in question is a European hate speech law, right? There's a whole ecosystem of journalists who are all over that like white on rice. Where are they? Why did Elon Musk apparently comply with Israeli censorship rules? Why?
Right.
He's not
Our,
Israeli.
he's
Twitter's
our
not an
free
Israeli
speech
company.
champion.
Yeah, exactly.
He's our free speech champion. It's not. It's not like he has Benjamin Netanyahu's pubes still lodged in the back of his throat from his trip to Israel or anything.
Yeah. Breaking. So this is Matt Orfala's outlet here. Breaking. American journalist arrested after reporting censored news in Israel. So the location of Mossad headquarters, Orfala writes, is no secret, but Israel seeks to keep missile impact locations hidden and bans the publication of such information. Times of Israel reports the exact locations of such impacts and damage are barred from publication by the IDF censor, according to their own paper of record there. Lafredo's report states Israel's intention is to downplay the significance of the attacks and claim Iran was targeting civilians. Absolutely. At the end of his report, Lafredo documents details that suggest his phone was hacked. As Lafredo left the missile impact site near Mossad headquarters, his phone and his cab driver's phone both lost GPS functionality, went blank, and then placed their geolocations in another country. So we're going to play a piece of video where that happens.
Israel was taking extra precautions to conceal the exact impact location. As we left the area, an unsettling incident occurred. Our cell phones lost GPS functionality. Maps went blank, and then both devices, mine and my taxi driver's, suddenly showed we were at Amman's airport in Jordan, over 120 miles west. For the Grayzone, in Israel, Jeremy Lafredo.
So obviously, if you're on Twitter, you need to be retweeting all that stuff. It is a terrifying thing that we don't have more information by this point. And so we have to pressure our government to the extent that we can to demand his release.
Israel is a rogue regime by every definition of the word. And when you look at this, I just want to point out, they talk about lack of freedom of the press in China, lack of freedom in North Korea. Well, we pay these guys, and they're taking, with absolute no consideration that they're American citizens, detained and beat American citizens. And what are we going to do about it? Are we going to do anything about it? Is there going to be censure, diplomatic response? I'd be very surprised. There should have been one already. Where are they? Where's Count Morlock? Why isn't he up there demanding the release of a journalist, of an American journalist? And, remember, so many of us in this space, like ourselves, are basically commentators. We do some on the ground reporting, but not like this. I mean, what Jeremy did there, he knows enough. He knows what the risks are. He had to have known what the risk of publishing that was. That takes some courage, man. That's a lot of balls. So whatever you believe in, thoughts and prayers, man. Thoughts and prayers. We're really hoping this has a happy ending.
Of course. And I just want to reemphasize, because I think it bears repeating. You can't even make a national security argument. They censored the locations of those missile strikes for political purposes because they wanted to shape a political narrative that it was civilians being targeted and not military targets.
Right.
If those locations were secret themselves, the Mossad headquarters and the airbase, if those were secret locations that no one was allowed to know about and he went and he found them, still we should be demanding his release. But this isn't even that. This isn't even, you can't even make an argument he endangered national security, which is the standard thing. No. He punctured their propaganda. That is what he is guilty of. And how our client state, who is our client state ostensibly, according to the national security...
The tail's wagging the dog here pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, according to the State Department, the reason we are partnered with Israel is because they are a democracy in the Middle East that is a bulwark for our values. So if that's true, why are we allowing them to detain one of our journalists for the crime, quote unquote, of deflating their propaganda narrative? Because that's all he did. He didn't put anybody in danger whatsoever.
This is why I'm saying you got to have real courage to go do this kind of reporting in Israel, because we know from history they'll just shoot you and they'll say we're investigating.
Mm-hmm.
And then 5 years later, maybe they'll say, oops, and they'll face no consequences. They know they can do whatever they want. Again, we talk about China. Yeah, man. I don't recall any stories of Americans going there and just getting shot.
Getting shot in the head by a sniper.
I haven't heard about American reporters going to China and just getting sniped.
No. And if that did happen, you could bet your ass that our State Department would not say, well, it bounced off the ground and hit her by accident.
Yeah,
right.
We wouldn't be doing
no, I'm sorry. That wasn't the State Department. That was the
JFK
president. That was the president. That was Joe Biden who said that. Yeah.
That was Biden. Yeah. It wouldn't be the JFK magic bullet theory.
Right. Exactly. All righty, folks. We're going to take some Rumble Rants and Super Chats. Then we got one more segment on the day. Ken Texican, thanks for the $50. Let's get a cowbell for Ken Texican. Thank you for that.
Thank you, man.
Checking out a DD Rumble Live for a few weeks, but hoping to catch clips. Much thanks for your work and humor. As numbers pick up, please don't ever do the whoopee show unless you hold the mute joystick. Thank you very much. Ken Texican, appreciate that. A very generous donation. Count Chocula and Kareen What's Her Guts need to be locked together in Thunderdome forever and forced to fight while listening to Creed. Thank you, Hillary Hinton. Appreciate that. What do we got here? Nothing. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Just in time. Thanks for the $5. Will we be told once again that Jill only got 1% of the vote? Would that be believable this time? I mean, I think it's going to vary from state to state. It would not shock me if she pulls around there nationwide. And part of why I think is because she seems to be really focusing her efforts in Michigan. And she's done some events in Texas and stuff like that. But I think there are a few states here that you want to really look at on November 5th. And folks, mark your calendars, of course. We will be live all night from 6:30 p.m. until the cows come home on November 5th, into November 6th.
I'm actually, it's going to be the first time I've ever drank alcohol on a show.
There you go. That'll be fun. I might have to cross state lines into Vermont and get some of my good Vermont beer to plug on the show. I'm a hop, skip, and a jump away from Vermont. It's doable. Israel just detained Grayzone journalist Jeremy Lafredo, blindfolded and beaten. Says nothing. Yes, thank you. We just got to that for you. And obviously, if you guys are on Twitter, social media, share that as far and wide as you possibly can. Obviously. Okay. All right, folks. We got one more segment for you guys today. And this is somewhat of a follow-up to a segment that went pretty viral on CBS morning show about a week and a half or so ago. CBS Brass says DeKuppel. Is that the guy's name? Tony DeKuppel? Whatever the hell, how the fuck you say it.
Yeah, I don't know how the fuck you say that shit.
However the hell you say it. I forget. This is the first 15 seconds. Coates' interview did not meet standards, according to CBS
I just dropped
Brass.
the F-bomb, by the way.
Yeah, it's all right. I'll snip it out. Yeah. So, folks, this is in reference to an interview that went pretty viral. For those of you who do not know, Ta-Nehisi Coates came onto the CBS morning show here to plug his new book, of which about a third is devoted to the Israel-Palestine conflict, and he frames it very simply in terms of his opposition to apartheid ethno-states. He basically lays out the case that Israel is an apartheid state, and Tony pushed back on him and said, it sounds like you're saying Israel shouldn't exist. Israel has no right to exist. If you were to only read this book, you wouldn't think there's anything redeemable about Israel. Made a real, just really kind of came at him pretty hard over this part of the book. And so they had a back and forth. It wasn't a blow up.
Yeah, we have a little audio of that.
Cracker ass, cracker, put my foot in the cracker ass, cracker.
Exactly. It did go pretty viral on social media. And so now CBS says that interview did not meet their standards. So CBS News leadership is addressing with staff an interview conducted on the network's flagship morning program by a top anchor that the executive said did not meet its editorial standards. In an editorial call Monday, audio of which was obtained and published by the Free Press, CBS News executives Wendy McMahon and Adrian Rourke said the interview conducted by anchor Tony Dokoupil and of author Ta-Nehisi Coates fell short of the network's standards for journalism. Quote, "We will still ask tough questions. We will still hold people accountable, but we will do so objectively, which means checking our biases and opinions at the door," they said on the call. During the interview, Dokoupil pressed Coates about a section of his new book in which he criticizes Israel over the ongoing war in Gaza, asking him why leave out that Israel is surrounded by countries that want to eliminate it, and pressing him about Israel's, quote, right to exist. The online news site Puck reported several staffers at CBS were angered by how Dokoupil conducted himself during the interview, arguing he injected his own bias into the conversation. One reporter at CBS can be heard on the call pushing back on network leadership, saying Tony prevented a one-sided account from being broadcast on our network about a deeply complex situation that completely was devoid of history or fact. We'll get to all of this in due time, but first we're going to play.
That's Elon Pape, right? Who said the greatest trick Israel ever pulled was convincing people it was complicated.
That it's complicated, right? Exactly. So we're going to play some of this audio that was obtained by the Free Press. We're going to play a piece of the Free Press's commentary on that from Batya Sargon, and then we're going to play the audio from, is she named here? One CBS reporter. No, Jan Crenshaw, I think her name is. What's the name of that last one? Yeah, Jan Crawford. She's the one who took Tony's side. So we'll play all that, starting with the big piece of audio that the Free Press came upon.
We fail our audience, and there are times we fail our audiences and we fail each other. We're in one of those times right now, and it's been growing. And now we are at a tipping point. Many of you have reached out to express concerns over recent reporting, specifically about the CBS Morning's Coates interview from last week, as well as comments made coming out of some of our correspondents' reporting. I want to thank every single one who reached out for your honesty, your transparency, and your commitment. So I want to address three things. Number one, after a review of our coverage, including the interview, it's clear there are times we have not met our editorial standards. Number two, this has been addressed, and it will continue to be in the future. And number three, I want to acknowledge and I want to apologize that it's taken this long to have this conversation.
Okay, so now we're going to go to the Free Press's commentary on this issue from Batya Sargon, because they took issue with the fact that CBS... they took issue with the fact that CBS is bothering to reprimand their host. Meanwhile, and look, he has not been fired. She didn't ream him there, but she mentioned, hey, some of our colleagues here within the network, within the organization, thought that he injected his own personal bias in an inappropriate way into this interview. So here is the Free Press panel on that. Specifically, Batya Sargon.
When I first saw that clip with Ta-Nehisi Coates, I was so thrilled because I've been trying to make this argument that anti-Zionism is just wokeness Middle East edition forever. You take, the distinction that Western civilization is built on, that there's a distinction between right versus wrong, and you throw that away and replace it with the distinction between powerful versus powerless, and then you superimpose skin color onto that, and boom, whoever has less power is the victim and is always inherently virtuous, including during the Second Intifada when they're blowing up children, and whoever has allegedly more power is therefore inherently evil and therefore is always at fault and has all the agency, and the side with less power has no moral responsibilities, right? And then so
you see what they're doing here. You see, that lays the anti-woke grift to bear.
I haven't even seen this
in broad daylight. They just want license to basically oppress people. They want
Yes.
license to subjugate people. They want license to dominate people. And their response when they're called out for it is, well, you're a cultural Marxist is the term that they like to use. Well, you're just describing dynamics of right and wrong. You're substituting that with powerful versus powerless, and you're assuming that people with power are always wrong and that the people with no power have no moral agency. What you're describing is, in this context, a clear-cut example of how people in power are abusing that power to evil ends over people with no power who, yes, do lack moral agency because they lack political autonomy. They lack political autonomy. You can't ascribe agency to an entity with no autonomy. If you afford an agency, if you afford an entity no autonomy, you deny it agency. That's obvious. And they just say that in this whiny tone of voice to sort of act as though what I just said is not reasonable. No, what I just said is perfectly reasonable. That's the way most people are starting to think about this now, which is why that interview caused such a problem, because you brought someone who has been afforded a lot of cultural cachet within these elite media circles in to talk about an issue like apartheid. He criticized apartheid, and then the idiot host took a contrarian view on apartheid.
Right.
And they don't see a problem with that because they're pro-apartheid, and they want to frame anti-apartheid sentiment as wokeness repackaged. Exactly.
Right. It is very interesting that this whole movement, such as it is, took such a long way around to have the avant-garde point of view of Victorian-era British people.
Yeah, right, exactly.
You know, this is a lot of learning they did to become just Victorian Brits.
Yeah, right, exactly.
This is just a very classic argument for colonization. These people are savages.
Right.
When they fight back against us, they're showing how savage they are.
Right.
Not that they are taking exception to being oppressed.
Right.
And there's an underlying assumption of the West and its value system as being literally morally superior to those of the people resisting them. So even if you have been colonized, your resistance is wrongheaded because we're bringing you enlightenment.
Right.
We're bringing you civilization. The idea that the West is uniquely concerned with right and wrong, that is a Western value, the concern with right and wrong, when it's the underpinning of all philosophy developed by all cultures anywhere at all points in time, even below the level of the state, even at a tribal level. The idea that the West is uniquely concerned with questions of right and wrong. And when you look at the history, we certainly have not carried over that concern to the way we've treated other people. And hey, I have always said when this subject comes up, I don't believe the West is uniquely evil. I believe I believe that states are as evil as their opportunities very often, and the West had unique opportunities to do what many states before it have done: enslave, conquer, murder, ethnically cleanse areas. That's not unique to the West. Its opportunities historically were unique. And I do believe that seeing that history as invalidating all the accomplishments of the West, all the moral philosophy of the West. Well, you could say that about the Arab world. You could say that about the Asian world. So you're going to throw out all the work of all of these civilizations because of their worst sins and their worst crimes. So I think that is throwing out the baby with the bathwater. I do believe the conversation should be focused on taking the best, not just from the West, from all cultures, from all civilizations. I think that's very important as well, to develop a respect for other cultures and other civilizations and their accomplishments and the philosophical precepts that they've developed, and move forward as a species, try to leave that darkness of human history that is common to all human history, not just Western history, behind. But for these people, they are just making the classic, the West is the best argument.
Right.
And if you're fighting against it, it's because you're ignorant. What's very interesting about their anti-woke thing is they're making, in the end, a woke argument that they want Israel to be a protected class.
Right.
They want that group to not be held to the moral standards that we would very quickly hold any country that's not a client state. In the end, they are the wokest of the woke.
Of course. Of course. All right, so then there's one piece of audio that the Free Press put in their article that was not part of the video. But this is Jan Crawford, who stood up for Tony and basically categorized Ta-Nehisi Coates' position as being devoid of history and fact. So we'll hear a voice from the opposition here.
So I guess it sounds like we're calling out one of our anchors in a somewhat public setting on this call for failing to meet editorial standards, or I'm not even sure what. Like, I don't understand how Tony's interview or any of his comments that he's made with anchors fail to, meet our editorial standards that obviously go back to the days of Murrow and Cronkite, which, of course, I thought our commitment was to truth. And when someone comes on our air with a one-sided account of a very complex situation, as Coates himself acknowledges that he has, it's my understanding that as journalists, we are obligated to challenge that worldview so that our viewers can have that access to the truth or a fuller account, a more balanced account. And to me, that is what Tony did. He challenged Coates' worldview, his one-sided worldview. Coates got to respond. It was civil. I mean, I'd have to look this up. I don't know if I'm quoting it exactly, but I read the Washington Post and they said it was calm and, heartfelt. I think those are the words they used.
So it didn't evolve into a WWE smashing chairs over each other's heads. That made it okay.
Well, the problem with what she's saying, and she doesn't understand this because she's a brainwashed Zionist, is that the argument Coates was making was not complicated. It was actually very simple. And part of the reason why that interview went as viral as it did is because he put it in very simple terms to Tony's face. You're either pro-apartheid or you're not. Apartheid is either right or it's wrong. And so in her mind, Jan Crawford's mind, the CBS host, Tony DeCouple, was, bringing another side to a very complicated story. The problem is anybody who has their head on straight doesn't see this as a complicated story. Tony DeCouple was making a pro-apartheid argument on CBS. And as that issue comes so clearly into focus, as the simplicity of it, as the black and white nature of it becomes so obvious, people who take the contrarian view are going to be called out for it. And it is going to be categorized as bias, not as objective journalism. If you brought in a scholar of apartheid South Africa who had a book about the horrors of apartheid South Africa, and one of your hosts pushed back and said, well, wait a minute. Are we not? Is it unfair to put all the blame on white South Africans? Did black South Africans not have any agency? Were they not somehow responsible for the situation that they were in as victims of an apartheid state? You could never say that on the air.
We had a very successful policy here called separate but equal.
Right, exactly. Like, you could never say that on the air. You would be run off the air for that. Of course you'd be criticized for that. Of course you would be accused of bringing bias to that. And part of why he got pushback is because Ta-Nehisi Coates put the issue as simply as that. And he is the exact wrong guy in their minds to come and make that argument, because they have awarded him such cultural capital that when he comes in and says this is apartheid, the only way to push back against that coming from his mouth is to expose yourself as a biased actor in favor of apartheid. And of course you're going to get pushback for that. But she doesn't understand that. They want to present this as a very complicated case, and as Ta-Nehisi Coates bringing a one-sided, simplistic, reductive, ahistorical attitude to this, when that is not what he did. He came out, he laid out a very simple case, and Tony DeCouple blatantly took the wrong side. We'll finish this up.
I don't see how we can say that failed to meet our editorial standards. I mean, I thought our editorial standards focused on, and when we announced this in a public setting, which I understand you say you've addressed it with Tony. I don't know what that even means, but it's when we fail to, or when we broadcast false information, or we don't adequately verify something, which we have done in the past, and we've acknowledged that. But here, I think Tony did the opposite. He prevented a one-sided account from being broadcast on our network about a deeply complex, as you said, situation that, completely was devoid of history or fact. And as journalists, it seems to me that's what we have an obligation to do. And as someone that does a lot of interviews, including on controversial topics with public figures, I'm not really sure now.
So Tony did a great job in preventing an anti-apartheid argument from airing unchallenged. He pushed back on an anti-apartheid argument. He gave the pro-apartheid side. Right.
Well, this is a masks off moment all around, because you hear this candid conversation. It shows you what absolute criminal idiots are being paid good salaries to bring you the news, so-called news, and what kinds of biases they're bringing into that process. And then on the other side, with the free press, it's an extension of what we saw, douchebag dialogues. All these anti-woke people, they're just very conventional 19th century Western chauvinists with a lot of references to transhumanism and 21st century elements sprinkled into their rhetoric. But in the end, they're just old school colonial Western chauvinists. That is their vision of the world, and they justify it with a lot of very elaborate scaffolding.
Yep. And you're right. It is all being laid to bear. And it's great. It's great to see. And it's good that the newsroom, that people there had that pushback, because again, the only way you could consider what Tony did good objective journalism is if you operate under the false premise that this is a complicated issue and that Israel is not really an apartheid state.
Right.
Which
they've gotten away with for 76 years.
Which is something they've gotten away with for 76 years. And now that they're not getting away with it anymore, you're not allowed to take a pro-apartheid position on the air without getting pushback. Again, they're not even saying he should be fired. They're just saying, hey, this was really kind of out of bounds. Right. Like, you're coming on here, like you bring Ta-Nehisi Coates on the show, and then you start trying to pin him down with a pro-apartheid argument. That's really bringing your own bias to the conversation in a way that does defy standards of objective journalism. Again, if this really were a complicated, like if society still saw this as a complicated issue, you could make that argument. The reason that argument falls flat, the reason that interview got pushback, is because thankfully society is finally progressing, evolving to recognize apartheid where it exists and try and do something about it. Like, how do you think the Civil Rights Act was won? Like, you have to be willing to, as a society, challenge a certain way of thought. Challenge.
Well, South Africa was shocking.
There's no
in
such
the
thing
80s.
as separate but equal, and separate but equal is not acceptable. Therefore, we are, as a society, going to move on from that, and we're going to have to drag some of the mouth breathers along. Otherwise, it's never going to happen. So that's what's starting to happen now. And I don't understand the mindset of these people who are just resisting that. As like, how do you think any social progress was ever won?
Right. Of course.
You know what I mean?
Well, and then these people, I remember I was very young when they really started. Reagan was president, and he was pro South Africa. They don't want to talk about that right now. Right. And you had that Sun City record dropped, where all the hip hop stars of that era did something to raise awareness about South Africa. And I remember I was a teenager. I was shocked that in the modern world there was like a Western country that literally had apartheid. Even then, it was shocking that you still had a country functioning that way, and that it was complicated, and that America was supportive of the government there. And eventually, they were shamed into, America was shamed into changing its stance. With Israel, they've been able, unlike the South Africans had nothing to hide behind. The Israelis hide behind the Holocaust. They hide behind the historic oppression of Jews. And that is part of what's made it so difficult to pierce the veil of what Israeli society actually is. If it's not an apartheid state, what is an apartheid state? If that's not an apartheid state, what is an apartheid state? Where you can't use certain roads that Israelis can use. That's not, how is that not an apartheid state? By any definition, it's an apartheid state. The Holocaust deflector shield, it's finally losing its power, and the state is being revealed for what it's always been.
Indeed. Furrow's Queen Fire Dancer, thanks for the $1. Oh my God, do you know what would make me really happy? If I could get a Norm Finkelstein impression to go with the Jordan Peterson one. You guys do the best impressions. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. I'll work on it for next time. Thank you. Miserable Live, thanks for the $2. America's a thug that's been supporting our thug that's been terrorizing the Middle East for 76 years. Eventually, the rest of the world will get together, take down the bullies that we are. Thank you, Miserable Lib. Appreciate that. Sparky, 63, thanks for the $5. Remember, Elon gave Bibi full-throated fellatio. Yes, we referred to that earlier.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sparky.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. This is news to me. We'll have to cover this on Sunday. Brown University Board decides not to divest from Israel.
Oh, really?
Abandoned for nothing. Protest movement defeated. Well, they should get back out there. Yeah, so Brown promised
honestly,
the
that
students
doesn't
a vote.
surprise me. I was very skeptical.
Yeah.
That they were going to vote to disinvest from Israel.
Yeah, for those who haven't followed that, so Brown, just very shortly after their student encampment started, they agreed to hold a vote in the fall semester, which apparently was now, on divestment. And that's why those encampments were closed up. So now, if they voted not to divest, we'll see if they come back. Hopefully they do. Let's see here. When they mean bias reporting that the host's kids and ex-wife lives in Israel. Yeah. Funny that CBS says reporting was biased, and then Satya adds more of her Zionist biased oppression equals intifada. Yes, exactly. Jan Crawford has been called out by Grayzone for her bias pro-Zionist and pro-empire bias too. Does not surprise me. Thank you, Goo81. Appreciate that. John M. in Minnesota, House passed a resolution, in July of 2023, that Israel is not a racist or apartheid state. Case closed. But yeah, that was, you know who is largely responsible for that is Pramila Jayapal, who called Israel a racist state. And then the backlash of against that statement was so severe that the House decided to call to a vote something to say that Israel was not a racist state. And actually, Jayapal herself voted against calling Israel a racist state, even though she was the one who raised the issue at first. Tony's response to apartheid of roads that Palestinians can't use. Do Palestinians have an agency? I would rate that as if number one really dumb answer by a journalist. Of course, it was a ridiculous question. We covered that segment. If you want to watch it, it's in our clip library. Probably about a week ago, I guess. Lastly, how are former NFL players like Nate Burleson to be considered news journalists? Yeah, sometimes these athletes make their way onto these panels, Sometimes charisma is all you need. Goo81, I watched a clip recently of South African debate where reporters were biased towards white debaters compared to black South Africans. The white side literally said that black South Africans have it good. Wow.
Wow. I mean, it doesn't surprise me, but yeah.
Yep.
That's how people are going to remember this someday. And you know what? All these people, if you lie for the establishment, as Jimmy often points out, there's no consequences. So many people making these arguments now, once the narrative, the zeitgeist really tips, they'll just pretend they never said anything. And they'll never be held accountable.
Yep, that's true. Sparky, thanks for the $10 on YouTube. We are rightfully concerned about foreign wars, but we shouldn't forget the war on small businesses and the war on unions. Two theaters which combine is the Great War of the Middle Class. Thank you, Sparky. That's true. Kuznetsky Bassane for $20 says, you guys are the best. Thank you, Kuznetsky. Appreciate that very much. Leprechaun Alley, thanks for the $19.99. Wasn't there a swell of the left at the turn of the 20th century before we got FDR? Anything comparative about 2016 to now? Good point, Leprechaun Alley, and unfortunately, there's not much. There's not much because my analysis of that is that capitalism is exponential. You know, as it is allowed to grow unfettered, it becomes exponentially more powerful over time. And the end of the Cold War, the end of history, just kicked that into overdrive because there was no longer a competing economic system on the world stage to force capitalism to rein itself in. You know, part of the reason why you had relative prosperity in the middle of the 20th century is because you had state socialism exist in a formidable form on the world stage. Don't forget.
Well, also, most of our competitors have been bombed to the Stone Age by World War II.
Well, that's true, but there was also a sense amongst capitalists that they had to give a little bit up because they didn't want communist movements taking hold.
Right. Yeah.
Because communism existed with force on the world stage. Once that no longer was the case, they no longer had to be burdened by any of that concern. So thank you, Leprechaun Alley. Sparky, where are you at? Wait a minute. Sparky, thanks for the $5. Israel didn't want to show that Iran had a successful missile attack, even though Iran gave Israel and the U.S. 2 hours notice. Pete Sweet, thanks for the $10. Thanks, Russ and Keaton, for being black-pilled. You two are really hitting your stride. DD, Jimmy, Hedges, Greenwald, Shama, Grayzone, and Finkelstein, and a few others still holding down the fort. Thank you, Pete Sweet. Appreciate that. At Russell, at Keaton, please remind everyone so inclined to write Uhuru 3 character sup. I'm not sure what you mean by that, but the Uhuru 3 were on trial in Tampa, and I don't know what's good. I'm assuming a lot of that stuff is going to be delayed because I know they're appealing the verdict. Sparky, thanks for the $5. Separate but equal lasted a long time, but I wouldn't characterize it as successful. No, good point, Sparky.
Yeah. I mean, it was a joke. You know?
Yeah, it was a joke. Right? Yes.
No. We are not pro-separate, but equal.
Right, exactly. Right. Yes, Russell meant that sarcastically. All right, Goo81. Next time Keaton gets together with Kit, debate using Finkelstein voice impression, and Kit uses his Mickey Mouse voice impression. There you go. John in Minnesota, interview Michael Chertoff, Homeland Security. Saw DeKupel interview Michael Chertoff, Homeland Security Secretary for George W. Bush. He argued for more surveillance. Chertoff had to tamp it down. Real POS. I believe it. Landrew is here with $100. Let's have a sound drop for Landrew and a cowbell for Landrew. Thank you, my friend. Shama has the power to answer our problems. Use the power of vote. Shama, the only political person I would donate to. Free Palestine. Amen. Thank you, Landrew.
Landrew is dead.
Appreciate that very much, my friend. Thank you so much. Brian Raum, thanks for the $5. Divesting in Israel is starting to be a mood issue as their economy continues to fall. Anyone who invests in them is going to not get anything back. Good point, Byron.
A lot of Mondo Weiss dropped that article. A lot of Israelis are pulling their money out of Israeli retirement funds.
Right.
Because they're afraid Israel's not going to exist when they retire.
Sparky, thanks for the $10. Unlike Israel, South Africa didn't resort to genocide. Of course, extreme racism existed in South Africa before, but apartheid wasn't official there until mid-20th century, a modern century. All right, folks, that is our show. We appreciate you very much for being here. Thank you so much. Thanks to our YouTubers. Thanks to our Rumblers. Oh, you know what we almost forgot to do? Sorry, we got to do this before we leave. I know we almost forgot to shout out our patrons because we had so much going on today. But we do want to shout out the patron supporters. Of course, got to do the scroll. Got to remember the scroll. I apologize to you guys. I had open, that's why. But if you would like to join the show as a paid member, you can join our Patreon, our Substack, or our Locals. We are really pushing Locals now since it's a free speech platform. If you join for $5 a month, you get your name up in lights here on the patron scroll. You also get call-in access to our Sunday Q&As after the show, which air exclusively on Rumble. You also get access to supporter streams, which are interactive, and you will get live stream access to our pre-recorded interviews starting in a couple of weeks. We have an interview coming up in a couple of weeks, which will be our debut feature where we will live stream that for patrons only. We understand a lot of you guys like when guests appear live, but it's just so much easier to schedule guests when we can make the timing flexible. But we do, of course, schedule a day or two in advance at minimum, so we will have those interviews live streamed so our patrons and paid subscribers will get a peek behind the curtain to watch those interviews in advance, days before they air live as they happen. So it's dudissidents.locals.com. If you're watching on Rumble right now, click that bright red join button underneath the screen. You can join for as little as $5 a month. If you join for $15 or more per month, which you can opt into on Locals or Patreon, you do get a free Do Dissidents t-shirt. And by Sunday's show, we will have a link for merch. We're still waiting on a couple of designs to be finalized from our audience submissions. We will hopefully have those by Sunday. If we don't, we're putting the shop live either way, so at least we could start moving what schmatas we have available in the store now. But if you join for $15 a month or more, one of the perks is you get a free shirt. And now that we actually have a reliable merch vendor coming online, we'll be able to send those in a timely fashion. So once again, for those who are currently signed up, and we got a few of your emails, I have those. I'm saving those. Those will be sent next week. If you are signed up for $15 a month or more on any of our platforms and you have not received the shirt yet, please email dudissidents@gmail.com and put patron t-shirt in the subject line along with your shirt size and mailing address so we know where to send that. Those will be shipped out next week. Folks.
And just to let you know, there's only 10 tickets left for the Friday tour.
Oh, wow. There we go.
October 25th. Saturday night is sold out. So be the last kids on your block to buy tickets. Friday, October 25th, 7 p.m. DoDissidents.com/tour. That is my Weird New York. Runs about 2.5 hours. I'm going to be generous with this crowd, so it'll probably be more like 2.5. I'll give you the works. Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, site of an infamous weather underground bombing in 1970, an MK Ultra safe house from Operation Midnight Climax. I shit you not. So lots of fun stuff.
DoDissidents.com/tour. 4 tickets, 10 left for Friday. Saturday sold out. Alrighty, folks, that is our show. Thank you very much for being here. Thanks to all our YouTubers. Thanks to all of our Rumblers. We will see you back on this channel Sunday night at 7 p.m. Keep an eye out. We had the pleasure of interviewing Diane Sayre, Senate for candidate on Jose's ballot line, on the LaRouche ballot line. We recorded an interview with her yesterday. That'll be out either tomorrow or Saturday night as a premiere. So sign up to our newsletter, dudissidents.substack.com. Even if you can't join as a paid member, sign up for free so you get those emails when we will be going live and or premiering our interviews. And then we'll be live Sunday night, 7 p.m. here for all to see once again. Until then, thanks for waking up with us this morning, everybody. We had a great time with you. We hope you had a good time with us. Until we see you again, be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.